It gets no more intense than this, the love of the Tifosi for the Scarlet Red Ferrari. Today they have what they wanted, a Ferrari 1-2 on Italian soil.
Across the line, he's taken it. It's pole position for Michael Schumacher. We'll talk about leaving it to the last moment.
Rubens Barrichello sits next to the team's #1 driver on the front row of the grid, and all Italy is celebrating.
I'm very, very pleased, of course, in front of the Italian public, and with such a strong competitor, it's a big satisfaction.
The Williams pair of Ralf Schumacher and Juan Pablo Montoya are on the second row of the grid, and Frank Williams thinks Michael is on a different planet.
Michael seems to be somewhere else presently.
It's McLaren who take up the third row, and they know they have much to do. It's round 4 of the World Championship. It's in San Marino, but will the Italian flag be waving tonight? Hello again. Yes, pasta, forks and spoons likely to be put away long enough all over Italy for the land of my grandmother to cheer on Michael and Rubens. Perry McCarthy and Damon Hill are back in the saddle. And Damon, as things stand, those Tifosi are going to get what they want.
Well, they're on the, as you rightly say, Ferrari home soil in Italy, and they're on the front row. It's going to be a packed track anyway from that point of view. And I think it's a strong chance that Ferrari are going to win this one.
That notwithstanding, your teammate thinks differently.
Long way to go in this race. A lot of things can happen. Juan Pablo Montoya for Williams BMW. That's my man to win.
Now, why is that? Is that some suspicion you have over Ferrari's reliability?
I think they could possibly run into some trouble. Bridgestone are looking really good, I must say that. And if it rains, then I think that will hurt the Michelin runners, including BMW Williams. But I think that Pablo Montoya has not shown his full potential at this race yet. I can't go into details. I'll be giving too much away. He's going to win it.
Yeah, because he's got inside knowledge. We both know that, Damon. But before this weekend, and ever since the last race, they played up, have the press, have the media, this battle, so-called, between Schumacher and Montoya. And yet it seems to have gone away somewhat during the weekend itself.
Yeah, Juan Pablo has been out-qualified by Ralph, and that's shown him a little bit down on form, or there's something missing there. But you can't discount him in the race. You know, that guy has shown time and again that he's there to barge his way through, and he's not going to change his form now.
Back in Europe, the top 3 teams in the top 6 places. It's you know, as everybody expected, isn't it?
But closely followed by Sauber, I might add, and they were very impressive in warm-up as well, with Felipe Massa coming up to alongside the great performance of his teammate Nick Heidfeld in qualifying. So I think that the Saubers could spring a surprise. I think that McLaren have got a battle on their hands with Sauber.
McLaren, yeah, it's not a great setup so far for them. They've got a wonderful new motorhome, or house, or stately home, call it what you like, but they're third on the grid as far as the teams are concerned. Not good news for Ron Dennis.
No, this is coming at a time when the whole of Formula One is coming under scrutiny. The manufacturers are making noises about starting their own championship, and everyone's looking at how the money is spent in Formula One. A lot of money has been spent with McLaren, as you say, motorhomes, but they've slipped back. They've definitely slipped back, and it's very difficult to shift yourself from that position. They're big organisations. To actually just flick a switch and make the cars get better is impossible.
What about Imola, the circuit itself? There seems to be a lot of affection for the place. Is it just because they're glad to get back from the long-haul trips?
I think there's an element of that. It's certainly an awful lot easier because, you know, just about all the teams are European-based, so just throwing the stuff in the trucks and getting out there, although it's a hard job and logistically challenging, is a hell of a lot easier than these flyaway races. They're on home soil to a large degree.
Variable's the same for most races, but uppermost in people's thoughts, it seems to me anyway, this weekend, braking, very tough on brakes, this circuit.
Yeah, well, we've seen some great shots of Ralph's car, Ralf Schumacher. I mean, when he hits the brakes, there's clouds of dust coming out of there, and there's so many big stops here at Imola. You come at the chicanes at over 300 kilometres an hour, and then you just stamp on the brakes. So that happens about 6 times a lap.
OK. Now the grid underlines what we've known for some time. Ferrari are top dogs, Williams are second and McLaren third. The real battle has been for 4th spot, which Sauber rather surprisingly made theirs last year. Renault are making a real effort to make that their spot this season, and as Nick Damon found out, they're pretty close.
We are quite happy. We never expect to be so competitive. Maybe today we are not anyway, but I think we're doing very well for the moment.
Ferrari have introduced lots of innovations over the years, like the semi-automatic gearbox and the chimneys, and Renault have introduced a 111-degree V engine. Is innovation the way to go to get a step ahead of the other teams?
Yeah, we start with the new technology in the engine because we believe that sooner or later a lot of people may take our road, and hope is painful like it was for us. But you know, Renault is back in Formula One because of the technology, of the innovation, and we try packaging the best is possible in our car. And we are sure, we are very young, it takes a lot of time, but hope in the middle of the season to be more competitive, and I hope every race we have something new in the car.
What are your ambitions for this season, or targets?
Same as the team. We just want to do a good job and try to develop together with the team, get better through the season, and you know, our target will be fourth in the championship. This will be really nice for us.
Renault seem to be the team that are the up-and-coming team, pushing forward and challenging McLaren's, as you were in Brazil. What are your aims for this year? Do you think you're going to get this podium, this elusive podium?
Well, yeah, I think I'd like to go one better than the last two races, really. Obviously, Malaysia is very disappointing, and you know, I think that a podium is on the cards, and you know, later in the season it should come. But that's probably what I'm looking for this season. A win would be nice, but I think that's going to be very tough because it's so competitive now, right at the front.
Now, one of the most interesting facts I discovered about the Imola track is that it is built on the site of a Roman amphitheatre where they used to stage chariot races. I was going to mention it to John Watson over the last couple of days, but out of deference to the fact that he may well have competed in those races, I decided to keep mum. So here I am, keeping mum. What is it like to drive around this circuit nowadays? Jarno Trulli takes us on a lap.
Hi, here is Jarno Trulli, F1 Renault driver, and here we are in Imola, the first European Grand Prix. This is a very tough circuit. As we can see, we got a lot of braking. We go through the first corner through Tamburello. This is a slow speed corner. We go in second gear. We brake down very, very hard here at the braking, about 80 meters to the corner. Going out, we accelerate in second, third and fourth, and then fifth, going flat through these two corners. Going through Villeneuve, the first one, where is number 5, is pretty quick. We arrive in 6th gear, we shift down in 5th, and we just let the car roll into the corner, and then we brake down fairly hard through the T6. In 3rd gear, going out, a lot of wheel spin going out of T6, and again, then we go to Tosa. Tosa is one of the slowest speed corner we have here on this circuit. It's in 2nd gear. And the most difficult thing is the acceleration out, because we have quite a lot of wheel spinning. 2nd gear, 3rd gear, 4th gear, going up hill, going towards Piratella. Piratella is one of the high-speed corner. It's in 4th gear. We arrive here in 6th. We shift down 2 gears in 4th, and then we accelerate out as soon as possible to keep our speed high and go downhill towards Acque Minerali. The first one of Acque Minerali is pretty quick. It's in 5th gear. We just brake and shift down a little bit, and we let the car roll through the corner, and then we eventually brake harder towards T10 of Acque Minerali. We shift down in 2nd gear, and then we go up again towards Variante Alta. Going out from this corner, there is quite a lot of wheel spinning. 2nd gear, 3rd gear, 4th, 5th, 6th again, braking hard and jumping on the corner in 2nd gear, jumping on both curbs inside on the right hand and left hand, and then using quite a lot the exit of the curb. 2nd gear, 3rd gear, downhill towards Rivazza. Rivazza is very hard, very hard braking. We shift down from 6th to 2nd gear, and we got quite a lot of understeering here on turning in, so we use the inside curb. In 2nd gear, 3rd gear, we shift down in 2nd again for the 2nd of Rivazza. We use quite a lot the inside curb and outside curb. We accelerate out 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th again, braking hard again and jumping on both curb inside on our left and then right. 2nd gear, we accelerate out and we are on the main straight.
So it's easy, isn't it? That's how to go around this circuit. Let's remind ourselves of who did it quickest in qualifying yesterday. Ben Edwards and John Watson were in the commentary box.
We're just about to go on air live with some Round 4 of the FIA Formula One World Championship is the San Marino Grand Prix, held in the Romagna countryside around the town of Imola. It's an all front row for Ferrari, 1 and 2 on the grid after qualifying yesterday. But as you can see, the clouds are coming in a little bit over the track here this afternoon, and there is a slightly increasing prospect of rain. Once again, a good view overhead. Cloud beginning to build up a little bit more, but not too dissimilar to the conditions we had in qualifying yesterday.
Track temperature 25, ambient 18, but a 49% chance of rain. But look at that, those clouds. That is back over at the far end of the circuit. If you imagine Tosser happened just where that helicopter is now, and that is grey, very grey indeed. And yeah, that passes without leaving some residue of rain on the track. I'll be surprised. Currently it's a 30% chance we're seeing on screen, but I think that's going to increase rapidly as the afternoon progresses.
It could well do. Well, let's hope. In fact, I think in many ways, normally I'd like to see a wet race as a bit of a mix-up, but I think in the dry this afternoon, we're probably more likely to see a close battle between Ferrari and Williams, judging by the times in qualifying, the times in the warm-up, and looking back to the wet weather running they did on Friday. Ferrari, Bridgestone seem to have the advantage in the wet conditions by quite a big margin, particularly when on intermediate rubber. Whereas on the dry track with the normal grooved dry tyres, there doesn't seem to be so much difference between the two teams. And
short pit lane, they might be able to make capital of that, don't they?
Yes, it doesn't penalise a pit stop quite as much as some places do here, but you're always going to be using the computer to work out the best optimum strategy. And if you're on the front row, you've got a choice of going for a one-stop rather than a two-stop because you're already ahead.
Felipe Massa's mad. Gerhard Berger told us that, but he's still a fan. And there he is in the 11th position.
Yeah, Felipe Massa's, the Salvers have done a very good job actually a whole weekend. They do get a little bit of help on the engines from Ferrari, but they produce their own car and they're looking strong.
The two Jordans are 14th and 15th, but Sato is the one who has the edge on his teammate. That's a turn up, isn't it?
Well, he's either getting better or Fisichella had a problem. But yeah, Sato is a real talent. We can see that with the confidence he throws the car around. He's quite an exciting driver. He's just got to stay on.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely trying his hardest. But I think we can say that Giancarlo Fisichella had to use a spare car in qualifying, and he said he wasn't happy. And you'd normally expect him to see ahead, and you'd have to say at 14th on the grid. Although Sato is ahead, it's still not good enough for Jordan.
Eddie Irvine 18th, the Jaguar, but a depiction of just how bad things are for the Jaguar team is that his teammate De La Rosa isn't even on that page. There he is, out on his own, right at the rear in 21st.
The Jaguar looked absolutely dreadful, I have to say, in qualifying yesterday, and they've got such a mountain to climb. They're going to have a really rough year.
But yet they moved ahead, or they seemed to move ahead in Brazil, and yet the latest reports we get, and I think they're pretty sound, is that there's a division right down the middle of that garage, that De La Rosa's crew aren't even bothering to talk to Irvine's.
And something's got to be done there, and this has got to fall at the lap of Niki Lauda. Great driver, as we've already mentioned, but Niki's got to slap these people. You cannot have two sides of the team not talking to each other, otherwise you're not getting development transferred from one to the other. They've got enough problems without this nonsense.
And our latest reports are that Jaguar aren't too keen on us having told the world about their problems. So there we are, we've said it 3 times now.
Well, they should concentrate on going faster rather than listening to what we've got to say.
I don't think it's us telling anyone. I think the results speak for themselves on the track, and they haven't been doing that well.
All right, let's skip away from Jaguar and Minardi, another side you expect to be at the back, another team you expect to see at the back, but they've lost one driver, Alex Ewing. There was some controversy this morning over whether he shouldn't have been allowed in by the stewards.
Well, you've got to have a rule. If
exactly.
It's a rule is you don't get in, you don't get in. I mean, that's why they have the rule in the first place.
Tough talking, but the guys know what they're talking about. Now, a reminder that John Watson and Ben Edwards are on the Super Channel and that all the interactive options are now available to you. But what you don't get is Peter Windsor. He's all ours. Peter, you have some news on Ferrari.
Well, yes, I just wanted to remind everyone that following Rubens Barrichello's phenomenal speed yesterday in qualifying, Michael Schumacher decided that obviously looked like a very nice F2002 that he'd quite like to try himself. So he's now going to race that car in which Rubens qualified, which in fact was the spare car yesterday because Rubens had an engine problem, which is why he's in the spare car in the first place. And Rubens is now going to race Michael's race car from yesterday, if you can follow me, and the unloved Rubens' original race car is now the spare. So a lot of changes there. But I have to say the big story at the moment is this cloud up here. And Ferrari are predicting that it's going to rain at about 2:30. And I suppose if anybody's going to know about the weather, it'll probably be Ferrari in this part of Italy. I don't know if that's a bad thing, really. It's probably an incredibly good thing because it'll make the race unbelievably open.
So is that about a 40% chance of rain, Peter?
Well, that means 60% no rain, doesn't it? If you're saying that, Perry?
Well, Peter, you're going to have to carry a Mac with you, I think, this race. So much uncertainty around. We'll be coming back to you later, I think, and hope you're dry.
He's always dry.
Thank you.
I just want the start of what Peter was talking about, and that's Michael has decided that, well, I'll have this car because Rubens did well in it. So Rubens will come on, presumably on camera at some point, and said, I'm delighted by that. I'm thrilled that Michael has nicked my car that was going faster than his.
I did, after qualifying, he went into the press conference and somebody said, well, that looked like it was hard work. And he denied it. And then in all the press conference reports I've read here, he says, "Oh, that was fun. You know, it was a tough race, you know, but I'm really happy that it was a good fight." And now he's decided to help himself to Rubens' car, but he's number one. And as you asked me earlier, responsible for bringing Ferrari to where they are now. So that's his privilege. But you know, you wouldn't be happy if you were Rubens, would you?
I don't know about an umbrella, but Peter Windsor could certainly do with a bit of transport for all that rushing up and down the pit lane he does for us, and we have just the very thing. It's the competition that everyone is talking about, the chance to win your very own Formula One car. We've teamed up with Jaguar to offer the very chassis that Eddie Irvine is racing this season. That's right, the R3, and you're looking at it right now. Currently in action this weekend in San Marino, the R3 could be yours at the end of the season. It's the first time that a current F1 car has been offered as a prize in a televised competition. Every Grand Prix weekend, one winner gets a pair of Eddie's gloves signed by the man himself and his or her name etched onto Eddie's car. The 16 winners will then compete to win this fantastic final prize, their very own F1 car. Congratulations to Andrew Oates of Southampton, winner of the Brazilian Grand Prix competition and the third qualifier for the Grand Final. Andrew correctly answered that, of course, Ayrton Senna is Brazil's most successful F1 driver, and he's now the proud owner of a pair of Eddie's gloves, and will be etched onto Eddie's car. So this week's question, what was the year of the first San Marino Grand Prix? What was the year of the first San Marino Grand Prix? We've set up a special phone line for your answer, and the number to ring is 09002 434 434. Or you can send a postcard to F1 Competition, B Sky B, 6 Centaurs Business Park, Grant Way, Isleworth, Middlesex, TW7 5QD. Calls cost 50p a minute and shouldn't last longer than 2 minutes. Lines closed Monday at midnight, with postal entries required by noon Wednesday. Good luck. Yes, good luck indeed. Now then, one thing that you won't have seen very often, unless you've actually been to Imola and or any of the Grand Prix events, is that before the race kicks off, it has to be before because otherwise they're busy, the drivers get shunted around the whole circuit on the back of a lorry. It sounds amazing, but it does in fact happen. And what's amazing, Damon, is really who talks to who.
Yeah, they're not shunted around, they all climb away. It's all part of the presentation of the drivers before the race itself. As you can see, they climb aboard the low loader thing with lots of lovely dolly birds to make them feel comfortable, ease their nerves for the race, and they drive around. And as you rightly say, what happens next is they sort of pair off. Some talk, some don't. You can just see in the background Jack talking to his mate David Coulthard. They both knock about together in Monaco. And invariably the Schumachers take one end and the people who aren't quite so friendly with them go the other end.
Decides to push a few of the competition off.
But it's a chance for them to all chat. They've just done they've done the drivers' briefing before this, so there's a little bit to talk about. You know, maybe some of the things that the stewards have said about the race, and then. You know, and whilst they're waving away at the crowd and getting a bit of reaction, it's I must say, it's very uplifting as a driver to go around and see the crowd. I used to enjoy it, but I used to get abuse as well. It was quite funny.
I was the one shouting it.
All right. Windsor's been listening to that. He has a story. Peter, I'm intrigued.
Racing driver friend of mine who will remain nameless, who understands German but isn't German, occasionally stands quite near Michael and Ralph when they're on that low loader. And I was talking to him the other day and said, what do they talk about? And he said, well, he can certainly hear the word tyres and fuel being mentioned quite a lot. And although, of course, Michael and Ralph go out of their way to say they never, ever, ever talk about business with one another for obvious reasons, I thought it was quite interesting. And I was actually talking to Michael after the race in Brazil and saying, were you worried when you had to come in before Ralph and you knew that he was going to, well, he did those extra laps, that he might take the lead from you? And Michael just said, oh, no, I knew how much fuel Ralph was. Well, yeah, no, and he sort of corrected himself. And one wonders how much they actually do talk.
Yeah, well, Peter, I always wondered that myself. I mean, I was actually teammates with Ralph at one stage, and I knew obviously that that he quite often used to keep a dialogue going with Michael, and then he insists that he'd never never discuss tactics. But I just the mind boggles as to what goes on between those two. They're in such a powerful position, two front line running drivers, and they can talk tactics.
Peter, thanks for that. It started a rich vein of conversation here, which I'm going to bring to a rapid end now, because I want to go on to the fact that many of you seem to enjoy the onboard and pits options on our interactive service. Just a reminder, they're on buttons 6, 7 on your remote controls, and this is what you'll see.
Taken 4 victories, so we'll just have to watch and see whether Michael can beat yet another Formula 1 record. Looking into the Toyota pit at the moment, Mika Salo has scored points on 2 occasions this year, getting into the top 6. He's going to have to work a little harder perhaps today, with the car not qualifying quite as well, in 16th position on the grid.
The one thing we've got to see really is what will happen over a longer run. Nobody, to my knowledge, has been out and done more than maybe 8-10 laps on one run. Weather conditions, of course, on Friday being wet throughout the Friday, then part damp, wet on Saturday morning, improving for qualifying on Saturday afternoon. It was only this morning, and again, the track wasn't what I'd call completely dry. There was patches of damp around. Michael Schumacher did do a fairly long run, but it was at the end, it was Rubens Barrichello who ended up, and that's Rubens there jogging. We've seen him jogging a few times on track this season already, but jogging quickly across to the garage to get himself prepared and into his car, because within 2.5 minutes the circuit will be open, and then cars will be able to leave the pit lane and either come back in again or go on to their rightful positions on the grid.
Interesting little conversation, John, going on here between Peter Sauber and John Todd, and just looking at some figures. Now, how closely do you think these two work together sometimes? Sauber running the Ferrari engine in the back of the Sauber. Do you think they're, have a sort of compare notes on strategy when they're going to make pit stops, that sort of thing?
Well, I think first of all it's a partnership, because while the engine is badged to Petronas, it is effectively last year's Ferrari engine. And there will be crossover of information, and there will be assistance from one to the other. Whether they'd go as far as saying, well, what we are planning to do is come in on this given lap, or whether Sauber are saying, well, we're prepared to help you. If we can run a low fuel car, like maybe Rubens did in Brazil, where he was clearly going for more than a single stop race, that they may be able to put Heidfeld somewhere between one of the two McLarens, or even split one of the two Williams. But talking about split, it's beginning to spit. A few drops of rain, you can see whether that's just, well, there's spots, there are spots around, you can almost count them, but that's indicative of what might be in store for the drivers later on, or even sooner this afternoon. And Mike Gascoigne also predicting that he is guaranteeing us rain, so brave commitment by Mike Gascoigne. He has committed us to doing 2 pit stops, by the way, as well, so at least we know that the Renault team are not going to do less than 2, and if they do, then Mike will be in trouble.
Mike, best of luck, thanks.
And with the disconcerting news that rain has started to fall at Imola, it's time to settle back and enjoy the build-up to the 2002 San Marino Grand Prix. A reminder that John Watson and Ben Edwards are on Super Channel, while Stamen, Perry and myself will be your hosts here on Master Channel. Peter Windsor will be adding exclusive interviews. In fact, the choices are amazing. I'm just glad I don't have to make any. Into, I was going to say the Renault pit, but inevitably when I say things like that, they switch pits. Rubens happily going into whatever car Michael has left for him.
Yeah, he's lucky to get that one.
Well, you know what it's like when you change cars, or you never know where to find your CDs, and
I'm just thinking about this.
Mirrors need adjusting and things like that.
This pre-stop possibility, that if it rains, I reckon for a low-level team on Bridgestone tyres, a triple stop could be the way to go. And in actual fact, it might reverse the idea from a low-level Michelin team who might just try and do one stop because they're not going to get any advantage from their tyres in the race.
I think you can count out a triple stop, Perry.
Why?
It's just
what, for somebody near the back of the grid?
No, it just doesn't pay off. If you look at the strategy, you've got a big gamble when you do something like that. You run low fuel. You have to get past cars, and you have to take big chances. It actually nearly always pays off to. There's not that many opportunities to overtake here. If someone like Hockenheim or Monza with long straights, you've got more of an opportunity, but not here. So I'm saying.
Where would you pass here? Where's the number one overtaking points for you? Into Tosa, maybe?
The actual crucial thing will be, and one thing that will make a decision swing from a one-stop, two-stop is the distance between the start and the first corner, because you can calculate how much more of a car length you pull out if you're running less fuel from the start of the grid to the first corner. Now, if you were a Williams, you might decide that with the advantage of a lower fuel load, you may get a better chance of getting ahead, and it's a gamble worth taking. If you think that the Ferraris on the front are on a one-stop strategy, then you may be taking a bit of a worthwhile punt at going for a two-stop strategy if those two strategies are comparable.
Well, Pete seems to believe that two-stop, everybody's going to. I hope I'm not taking his name in vain here, but he seems to believe that everybody's going to go for a two-stop.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, well, what's the point? Why not? If you was Eddie Irvine sitting in that Jag at the moment, would you go for a three-stop, especially if it was going? Okay, Michelin's is a wrong example because I think they're in trouble if it does rain. But if you were that far back, why not? I mean, these rows are separated on the grid by about 8 metres, and as you say, you could maybe clear a row or two or something with very light fuel load.
Well, it used to be quite common in the old days for teams who I reckon they had very little chance of finishing the race to run a very low fuel load. You used to see guys coming away from the back and overtaking car after car, and then of course the car would stop about sort of 20 laps into the race, and gave them a better chance of getting more sponsorship for the next one. But that was a long time ago, and nowadays there's more science involved, and you can't beat the statistics. You can't beat the numbers. Whichever way you look at it, there's a computer that calculates pretty accurately your lap time that you're going to be doing, and the advantages or not of having extra or less fuel.
Well, I mean, if we do have rain, do you see this upsetting the apple cart for Ferrari?
No, I do not, for two reasons. One, it's Michael Schumacher, and secondly, the Bridgestone, by all accounts, has got the edge. I don't think there's anyone, even Michelin don't seem to be saying they're very happy with their wet tyres.
Unfortunately, I have to totally agree with you, but I'm just kind of looking for
a
scenario where we're not going to say it's Michael and Rubens.
Well, this certainly does look like we're going to get some showers anyway during this race. If it's enough for people to go onto wets or not, we'll see.
Peter Windsor's started his work early this race day. He's in the Jordan pit with Gary Anderson.
Gary, a lot of Jordan fans out there, a little bit disappointed from yesterday. I guess you are too.
Yeah, all went a bit wrong in qualifying, really. Giancarlo had a hydraulic problem. He had to leave his race car at the track, use the T car, which it's never quite the same. And really, with qualifying, you never get enough time to sort it out. Takuma, I think, did a reasonable job in the conditions. He improved each lap he ran, so that's good. He's stepping forward a bit.
Interesting to say the T-car's never the same, because of course Rubens Barrichello had to jump into the spare Ferrari, and as a result of doing that, Michael Schumacher's now going to race that car because he thinks it's very good.
Yeah, well, that's the spare Ferrari set up for Michael, so obviously had a few little tricks on it, but we got no tricks left, I'm afraid.
Well, very best of luck. But just before I go, let's talk a little bit about the engine improvements for this weekend.
Yeah, it's an improvement for sure. I mean, with Honda stepping through sort of every race, trying to do a little bit more. We just got to both do that to try and move forward.
Very best of luck, thank you.
Cheers, bye.
Somebody who's racing in his race car. Now, is Michael...
That looks like rain to me, real rain as opposed to a few spits and spats. And I can bring you the weather forecast I've got. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's the latest one or not, but it says it clicks in from a 15% probability at 1:59. That's the time out there for the start of this race, to a 70% probability, which, Perry, as you know, is a 30% probability of it staying dry.
I think that all adds up to 100%, Matt.
And as I'm rightly informed by somebody far brighter than me, it's 100% now because it is in fact raining.
Your kid's been on the phone?
The 4-year-old, yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, there's a few spots of rain that can fall, and you can continue to run on the groove tyres. They still afford quite a bit of grip, and until you see really shiny bits on the track developing and on the tyres, and on the onboard camera shots, you'll see drizzle, of course, on the forward-facing cameras. Until you can see that, I wouldn't. You're not going to see anyone stopping for a change of tyre.
But in general, it's pretty good. Right, copy that. So come through the pit lane at reduced speed. To a start, you need to be up in A up 4 for the start. A up 4 for the start.
Any idea what A up for? That's what it sounded like, man.
That'll be, my guess would be a start control strategy or a switch or something in the car. Yeah.
We were talking earlier with Gerhard Berger about the software that's used.
So obviously go to the grid.
Yeah, that was just the team radio there. But about the software that's used for the traction control, a lot of people think, okay, why do some people make better starts than others? But of course, different teams have got different traction control systems.
Well, now, Perry, this looks a little bit more serious. Got a great shot here now of people racing to put their jackets on, and Peter will be doing the same, I expect. And this is more than just a little shower. This could be a downpour. Michael going back into the garage. We've seen him do this a few times, more times than I've been experiencing doing in the past years. He's spending every last second up to the last available second to make adjustments.
Let's see if Peter has got his dashing red hood up or not.
No hood on these Prix overalls, I'm afraid, but certainly all the Michelin runners looking a little bit worried now. Don't forget, of course, that there was a difference in performance between the Michelins and the Bridgestones in the wet and in intermediates, and it's potentially going to be an intermediate situation if the rain does get harder, so that's not good news for the Michelin runners at this particular race. But walking further down the grid, we'll come back to you in a second.
Yeah, well, it didn't exactly look when we were talking to Peter, it didn't exactly look like it was torrential downpour, although the people in the grandstands were reacting quite seriously to the rain. But then they have to sit outside for the next 2 hours.
Well, we're talking about this traction control thing, is that different teams and their engine partners have developed different traction control software, and there's a great deal of information that goes into the programming of this before each race start. They have to, you know, use their best endeavours to guess the frictional.
Yeah, and also, Perry, if they do start the race on wet tyres, you've got a different strategy for a wet start. All the figures and the data they get will be trying to match up the tyres, the dry weather tyres, grip that are afforded on that particular dry tarmac. Now, a slight bit of drizzle, if they decide to start on intermediates and suddenly their start strategy is completely redundant, they'll have an adjustment there, but it's more of a guess. A lot to talk about now. They won't be quite so relaxed. I think you'll find, Matthew, on this grid right now, they'll be toing and froing as to whether they're going to need to take a gamble for starting on dry tyres. But just some of the shots I've seen of cars going to the grids, looking around the different screens we've got here, and you can jump to some of the trackside shots, pressing button 3, for example, sees them going onto the grid now from behind, and button 4 has got a shot of Barrichello overtaking Panis, going up from Tosa, and the track looks dry. So certainly no need right this moment to panic.
Nick Damon and Peter Windsor, both busy for us at this critical point before the race. They've got a couple of drivers now.
Alan McNish, a difficult weekend. Looks like it might be getting more difficult with a bit of rain now.
Yeah, as soon as I drove out the pit lane, there's raindrops starting and they're getting heavier. Circuit at the moment is still definitely dry, and it's not really affecting the grip too much, but it's now persisting and could make the tyre choice very interesting.
Is it fair to say Michelin would prefer it to be either very wet or very dry and not the middle?
I certainly think we would prefer it to be very dry. There's no question about that. We were not ideally quick in the wet, and certainly in the qualifying in the dry condition where the car's more suited to it at the moment, and so interchangeable weather throws a lot of things up in the air, but if it's dry then it's certainly better for us.
Alan, best luck, thank you.
Felipe, a bit of it. What do you want it to be, wet or dry?
I don't know, we wait and we will see. I think we have a good car for both conditions.
Car feels well balanced and good in these laps onto the grid?
I think yes, in the warm-up was quite good, and then for the race I think we have a good balance of the car, but we will see.
Do you like Imola?
Yes, very nice track.
Very best of luck, thank you.
Well, he's not bothered either way, I think, Perry.
Yeah, no, good attitude. You just take it as he comes, but there again, being a Bridgestone runner, he can probably afford to have that attitude, can't he?
Yeah, and of course, it does, we talked about this before, but if you're in the middle of the grid, this makes life a little bit more exciting, and you get the feeling that if it does rain, you've got a better chance of improving your overall race position. But however, on the front row of the grid, where we're looking now with Rubens getting out of his car, it becomes not so much a question of opportunities as a question of making exactly the right decision and using every bit of judgment and all the bits of information you have that the team can afford you to make the right decision, and it becomes very, very critical time-wise as well. You cannot change your mind after so many more minutes to go before the start of the race, for example.
We just caught a glimpse there of McLaren boss Ron Dennis. Let's hear from one of his drivers, David Coulthard.
David, you weren't very happy with the car yesterday after that rapid engine change. How does it feel today?
Well, the balance of the car in the warm-ups one was quite a lot towards understeer, which is a bit different to what I experienced yesterday. Obviously, extra fuel on board has an effect here, and you're trying to really carry the braking into the corners. And we just got to wait and see what the race brings us now. I don't have a fresh set of tyres for the start, so I'm going to be maybe a little bit compromised off the grid, but it's a decision to try and make the car hopefully more consistent throughout the run. And hopefully, I'm just going to have to employ sort of Michael tactics off the line to maintain my position, which, you know, kind of goes against the grain a little bit, but I guess that's what the rules allow us to do.
You going to block or weave?
There's that expression, weave like a, but I probably can't say it on television.
Thanks very much, David. Very best of luck.
Thanks.
Okay, well, actually, I'd say David was on the right choice of tyre. He's talking about not going off on a new set of tyres, sort of got a scrub set, which will be much better in slightly damp, greasy conditions. When they're brand new, the rubber has got a little bit of a sheen on it, and not so good for getting off a slightly moist track.
What's this about adopting Michael tactics, Damon? What's he on about?
I don't know. I think he's lost, Perry. I mean, he's sort of talking about stuff which is kind of almost irrelevant. And yeah, I mean, he's trying to make the best of the situation. And in truth, he knows that he's not in front, major contention for winning this race. Now here we have Michael, a shot of him before coming onto the grid. Now either he knows a loophole in the regulations. He did this before in I think it was in Melbourne. He does what appears to be a kind of practice start. So they didn't actually spin the tyres there. I think a genuine practice start is illegal, but he's certainly going through some start procedure, adjusting his start launch control settings probably before coming on the grid.
That's a terrifying thing to see when you're dawdling around the pit lane and you see a Ferrari with #1 written on it, going for your ankles.
I said yesterday, I think it kind of reminds me of Jaws when you see that #1 Ferrari coming out like that.
Yeah, watching probably the richest man on the grid at the moment. Talking to a rival TV channel.
David Coulthard's manager.
Yeah. and everyone having a lot of fun. I mean, it's always very exciting on the grid and real buzz. I mean, a lot of celebrities are treated to walking about. This is Mrs. Eccleston enjoying a chat with Niki, obviously Niki Lauda. Yeah, I mean, it's very exciting to walk up and down on the grid, and I can't think of another sport where you get a chance to actually almost be in the arena before the event kicks off. But you have to watch your ankles, as you were saying, Matty, because cars roll up and down there. They cut their engines and roll up the grid, making no sound, and it'd be very easy to run down a very famous person.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to say, I'd be all right.
It's a high density of famous people time, you know. How many did you get today? Just 7 and 2 ankles.
Now, is he a German or is he an Italian? What do you think?
He's hedging his bets. Just waving at everybody. But adjusting tyre pressure, Damon, on the grid? Or tyre checking the pressure?
Yeah, they're checking those. They always do last-minute checks on the pressures and what have you. But I don't think those are the tyres you're going to start the race on, because they're.
No, I think what Michael's doing is pondering a last-minute switch of car there. But in the meantime, let's hear from Patrick, head of Williams. He's with Peter.
Patrick, nasty cloud over there over my shoulder.
Bad position for it, yeah.
What are your thoughts about the Michelin performance if the weather does change for the worse?
Well, obviously we think the dry is a bit stronger than the wet relative to the Bridgestone, but Michelin are making very good progress with the wet tyre, and anyway, we have to take it as it comes.
What's going to happen at the start, do you think?
No idea. There could be lots of bodywork in the air, but I hope not. But no, we'll have to see. I hope it's a clean start.
Very best of luck to you and the team.
I wanted to ask Peter, actually, to ask Patrick, whether it's probably too late now because he was quite short with his answers, but whether they've actually spoken to Montoya about taking it easier this time.
I've been wanting to ask that question all weekend and haven't got round to it yet, but you get the impression, certainly speaking to Gerhard Berger, as Perry and I did earlier on, that that was the idea. Anyway, everybody's having a look at what Ferrari are doing.
And, wrong caption there for Jeff Willis. It's not Rory Byrne, actually. That's the man we're looking at with the headphones on is Jeff Willis, standing next to now Adrian Newey, who we used to work for at Williams, both ex-Williams men, aerodynamicists, and they're looking at the Ferrari. So
some fit those suits better than others. Anyway, here's Rubens Barrichello talking to Peter.
Rubens, how does this car feel at the moment onto the grid?
It feels good, actually. It feels quite good. I mean, it's going to be a bit... the weather is going to be playing a big role today, so I'm quite confident, to be honest.
Yeah, it's good news if it rains. You love the rain.
I love the rain, so it's just I need to be prepared for that, that's all. But it's going to be really a good race.
And does this car feel any different from the car you qualified yesterday?
Not really, no. It feels quite good. The warm-up feels good, so I'm actually quite happy with the solution.
Great qualifying lap. Did you love it?
Yeah, I love it every moment. I just did it in 3 runs because I mean it's okay that on the 3rd run I got traffic, but I was so happy with the 2nd. I think I could have gone maybe a tiny bit faster, but not much.
What are you going to do with that extra set of new tyres?
Use it.
Very best of luck.
Okay, thanks.
To Michael then, Perry, that's what you said.
You have to feel for Rubens, don't you? I mean, he's obviously gagged and saying and putting a brave face on it and really playing the game, and I think he's done brilliantly this weekend so far. There's a lot goes on behind the scenes being a driver at Ferrari, and it's very difficult to always look completely happy in the situation, but he does his best.
He's number 2 in the best team. Wouldn't he be better off being number 1 at a team that's got a chance of being the best team?
But the way he's going, he really is doing a good job, and I think that from there's always going to be a market for an ex-Ferrari driver, an ex-teammate to Michael Schumacher, but whether it's with a team that can win or not, that's the big question for him.
Nick Heidfeld described getting 7th on the grid as almost like winning pole. Here he is talking to Nick Damon.
Not great qualifying in 7th. 4 of the cars ahead of you are on Michelin tyres. If it rains, will you be on the podium?
Well, it's difficult to say, but for sure Bridgestone is stronger in the wet, especially in intermediate conditions. So it would be quite nice if it rains, but also there always is a risk, as now when it's just whistling a bit and you just don't know how wet the next corner will be.
Have you devised a very flexible strategy within the team to take into account you might have to stop at any time for wet tyres?
Well, for sure, everything is thinking about that, but of course I can't tell you what we did.
Thanks, Nick.
10 minutes to go before the formation lap, so everybody's getting ready. But Nicky Heidfeld I think he's looking really good if it does rain.
Yeah, I mean
really
the body language as well from that guy has changed a lot. I think the old realisation that he's not going to get a straightforward ride up to the best team in Formula 1 has made him. He's taken that decision. There's something about that guy. He's matured a lot.
Yeah.
Earlier on we saw BAR's Jeff Willis taking a look at the Ferrari. Nick Damon, being the nosy sort himself, has just been asking him what exactly he was looking at.
Jeff Willis, new technical director at Bar, but let's not forget you're one of the men responsible for the Williams car this year. What do you think of its main rival, the Ferrari, you've been looking at?
There's some very neat and tidy bits on it. Certainly this year's Ferrari looks very well integrated. It's the sort of third or fourth in a succession each time. The car's becoming neater, more of a single concept. So very interesting, very nice. My first opportunity to have a quick look at it.
Is that something that Bar can ever achieve when they have a separate? Is that something Bar can ever achieve when they have a separate engine supplier?
It's more difficult, I think. It's a different way of doing it, but certainly we've got a way to go before we start worrying about that. We just need to get our level of design quality up to this end, and it is possible. It'll just take us a while to do so, and it's my job to set those targets that are appropriate to get us up to this end of the grid.
A better day yesterday, 10th and 12th. When will we start seeing the real fruits of yours and Dave Richards' labour?
In terms of performance bits, not for a few races yet. We're still understanding what the problems are with the car. In the shorter term, we really want to work on reliability, and I'd like to get both cars finishing the races. And from here, if we finish both cars, we have a chance for some points. That's the sort of thing in the short term.
Jeff, thank you very much indeed.
And yeah, Matthew, you were going to ask me something.
I was going to say, they spend millions of pounds on designing these cars. You can't possibly save yourself a couple of million by wandering up a pit lane and having a look at somebody else's, can you?
No, I don't think it's not that easy, no. But you always have to look. But Jeff Willis, we previously spoke to Patrick Head, all those guys, Adrian Newey and Jeff Willis, and a lot of other very, very good designers down the pit lane have come through the Williams school, and Patrick Head really picked these guys mostly from either from universities or from another up-and-coming team. He's very, the Williams school of design and engineering is a good discipline to take and get a team to move forward. So BAR could be, on the right tracks for in the next 6 months. I mean, you're not going to see anything really change there until next year, I'd say.
Peter Windsor, we're looking at Jacques Villeneuve now. Your thoughts on this one?
Well, as the grid clears and the extraneous personnel are removed and the proper team people, the guys who deserve to be on the grid, remain, the good news is that the sky is clearing a little bit. There's a bit of sunshine breaking through, a bit of blue sky. So I don't think Ferrari's 2:30 rain is going to happen. That's the first point. The other point is that if it's a dry race, look for some dispute potentially in the Parc Fermé after the race over the groove depths of the tyres between the Michelins and the Bridgestones there. Michelins tend to start the race not with new rubber, as we heard David Coulthard say, and there is some talk about, is the groove going to be legal at the end of the race? And Patrick Head, I think, made a good point earlier this morning when he said that if Bridgestone finish the race with tyres in very good shape and Michelin don't, that's when there might be some discussion. If they both finish with worn grooves, nothing will happen.
So Peter, on that point though, it's one of the major doctrines of this. If the Michelins, as an example, were found to be very worn. Sorry, I just backed off for a radio there, but if the Michelins were found to be extremely worn at the end of the race and they could show that there was actually an obvious performance gain in the closing stages of that race, would that be the thing that drew the attention on this?
Only if Bridgestone in the Parc Fermé had tyres with very deep grooves, and so far that hasn't happened in all three races so far on the Bridgestones and the Michelins. It's been very shallow grooves, so the argument will only work if one of the tyre companies finishes with its tyres much deeper than the other.
Okay, well, there's no doubt now they're going to be starting on dry tyres. Those are the tyres that are on the car. If the heavens open right now, they can declare a wet race, in which gives everyone a chance to change tyres. I'm right in saying, Perry?
Yeah, I believe that's the only thing that can really delay this race now.
Nothing can delay the race. It will start on time. No, I'd be sitting in the car now and pretty much have my mind anticipating a dry first few laps anyway. Whether you know, if it rains on lap 2, then that's obviously requires a change of tactic. But I mean, for the start at least, it looks like everyone's going to go off on dry tyres.
Impressive indeed, on a racetrack that most people believe prior to coming here was going to favour Williams and the Michelin tyre. But we've had unseasonably low temperatures, we've had all that rain on Friday, so many people's programs got set back, yet Ferrari maintaining the kind of element or level of performance that we saw in Brazil, where again they won what they called an away. It was an away victory for Ferrari, that Grand Prix victory in Brazil for Michael Schumacher. And this is now a home race, and I think Williams, BMW and Michelin will be very, very concerned if this is another Ferrari, let's say, parade.
Yes, well, we're just under 4 minutes away now as the safety car sets off to go and have a look around this Imola track. Gives us a chance to have a quick look at it as well. Down in towards the Tamburello chicane. This corner, of course, vastly altered for 1995 season after the events of 1994 that saw the loss of Ayrton Senna when he crashed at this section of track. We're looking at the track map at the moment, and after the finish line, that's that first chicane we were looking at. Down towards the first segment at sector 1, you see that's just after the Villeneuve chicane that was also added in for 1995, and then on around the lap. It's a track, John, that demands good traction and good horsepower. They're on full throttle for about 65% of the lap, so engine power is crucial here.
Yes, you've got to get the traction initially. There's no point having the horsepower if you can't get the grip, but essentially now with traction control that's been in part eliminated. But it is still a power circuit, and if you've got the power you can drag the downforce, and that's, I think, what's really hurting McLaren. They haven't got the power, but they're putting the downforce in the car to try and get the lap time. 5th and 6th on the grid, but slow down the straight. We've seen slow speeds from McLaren throughout the speed trap all weekend, away down in 17th and 20th for Coulthard and Raikkonen respectively, and that is hurting McLaren. And you know, I think there's an element of discontent coming through from the team, that they're saying, look, okay, enough is enough. We are here to win this championship. We're not here to make up the numbers. As far as Ron Dennis, who leads the team, is concerned, second is the first loser, and Ron is a sore loser.
That's right. Well, those two cars starting on the third row, as you can see, just ahead of Nick Heidfeld. They have to watch him. He's on the Bridgestone tyres, and he's been going very quickly all weekend so far. And in fact, Nick Heidfeld, 4th fastest this morning in the warm-up, ahead of both McLarens, as was his teammate Felipe Massa, who starts from 11th position here today. Just looking down the latter part of the grid as well. Watch out for Frentzen. Let's see what he can do in the Arrows today. Let's hope they don't have any dramas. They could do with just one good, clean race. They haven't had that so far this season. They've lacked testing, but now maybe their opportunity to get a decent race distance under their belts. And we'll also watch Renault here. Jarno Trulli and Jenson Button. Button's been scoring reasonably consistently, but Trulli as yet hasn't scored any points.
No, and again, there's a pressure on Trulli. He was considered to be the star of the team. Jenson Button was meant to be a bit of a lame duck based on last year, but that has been reversed. But behind the top 6 cars, the 2 Ferraris, Williams and McLaren, you're going to have a real battle going on. It's a question of whether Heidfeld can slot himself between the 2 McLarens, because alongside Heidfeld you've got Trulli, behind Heidfeld you've got Button, then you've got Jacques Villeneuve, and they're all covered by 0.3 of a second. And in the surge into that first corner, if one can get ahead of a car ahead of him, it will certainly mix and match the field up. As we see that countdown now continuing.
Yeah, just the 1 minute now to the formation lap. So the tyre blankets beginning to be pulled off the cars, ready for the start of this Grand Prix. Bit of sunshine over the start-finish straight, and you can see it's a brand new set of Bridgestone tyres that Michael Schumacher will be starting on. Rubens Barrichello saved a set of tyres, in fact, in yesterday's qualifying session. Just trying to see actually if both fronts were brand new. I think they were, but Rubens definitely managing to save a set of tyres. He didn't use all 4 sets. before that qualifying session, whereas Montoya there, you can see a scrubbed set of tyres for Michelin. That's what we've been seeing all year, that the Michelin runners tend to need to have a few laps on the tyres for them to be at their best. Here we are then, just a few seconds away from the start of the formation lap. This is their opportunity to test that launch control system, make sure it's all working correctly, and hope that they all get away cleanly, or they might just lay a load of rubber and not actually use the launch control too much. Let's just watch and see here as the start of the formation lap takes place.
Well, that's exactly what they've done. They're laying down as much rubber. You could see Coulthard weaved and bobbed around as he was trying to get the maximum amount of rubber down on his starting position. There's a cloud of smoke at the very back of the grid. I don't know whether that was a problem or whether that was just an excess of smoke, but it looked to me more than rubber smoke as the field now filter their way down into and through the Tamburello corner.
Yes, I think it was probably, might have been one of the arrows. We saw Bernoldi putting out a lot of smoke this morning when he did a launch control start out at the end of the pit lane as well. But everybody's got half an eye on the sky at the moment, let me tell you, because the clouds still looking fairly heavy overhead, particularly towards that start-finish area, as the cars come around now. 21 cars this weekend because, of course, Alex Young failed to qualify in yesterday's final session. Juan Pablo Montoya, what can he do from the second row of the grid? Less likely that he's going to be wheel-to-wheel with Michael Schumacher on the first lap this time.
You wouldn't think so, but of course, he's going to be starting behind Rubens Barrichello. It's going to be difficult unless Montoya does just get an incredible bite and can slot himself somewhere ahead of his teammate. But I do think that Ralf Schumacher is not in a mood to let Montoya do anything. And if I was Juan Pablo Montoya, okay, you've got to see your chances and take them, as Luca Bador, Ferrari test driver, looks on. You've got to make your chances as well as take them. But Montoya needs very, very much to finish a race in the points and not have another repeat of what we saw in Brazil. Montoya some 2 points behind Ralf, but of course more critically he's 12 points behind, or 10 points, I beg your pardon, behind Michael Schumacher.
Yes, 10 points the gap between Michael and Montoya, and that's something that Montoya wants to do something about here this afternoon, but it will be so tough. Ferrari are on home territory and they have the front row of the grid to themselves. Adrian Newey makes his way back. The Ferrari mechanics also getting all set for the start of this Grand Prix. There is a bit of a run down towards that first chicane. It gives them an opportunity, hopefully, to sort themselves out a little bit. And let's hope they can get through the first corner and indeed the first lap safely this time without any incident. Will Barrichello try and challenge Michael off the line? What about Ralf Schumacher? Made a brilliant getaway from third last year to be leading on that first lap. Well, we'll see whether the BMW launch control is up to that. And watch for those two Renaults. We know how quick they are. If Trulli and Button get away well, they may get ahead of Coulthard and particularly Nick Heidfeld as well. So for Renault, they know how quick they can be off the line. Let's see whether they can do it again. Just sitting there with Montoya.
Just looking at Barrichello, he's not quite straight in his grid. He's trying to get as straight a run as possible. Look, you can see he's just slightly offset in his grid box.
Right, so you're looking at the view on board with Montoya at the moment as we wait for the last car to move into place. That is Pedro de la Rosa in the Jaguar. 62 laps of the San Marino Grand Prix about to get underway. Changeable conditions possible. It's a dry start to the race. The fourth round of the FIA Formula One World Championship. All set to go. And they're away. Michael Schumacher gets a good getaway. Barrichello trying to block Ralf Schumacher, but Ralf has got away into second position. And Montoya's trying to defend from the McLarens behind him. And Montoya slots into fourth place. Great start once again for Ralf Schumacher.
And one of the two Renaults we couldn't see whether it was Button or Trulli tried to force his way past the McLaren. He got forced back and McNish is out.
Alan McNish out by the side of the track, and that looks like some sort of mechanical problem as Michael Schumacher leads. Ralf just locks the wheel under braking into tow. So the two Renaults running around together, and look at Heidfeld and Felipe Massa there together in the two Saubers. So Heidfeld made a very poor start, basically not away as well as he would have hoped.
The two Renaults did get an advantage over the two Saubers. So there we see McNish being pushed back. There are the top six. David Coulthard and Seth Raikkonen fifth. Pretty much the grid As in fact, Ralf Schumacher, the only one who's benefited getting ahead of Rubens Barrichello.
Yes, except for Heidfeld, who's lost a couple of places, started 7th, and he's down in 9th position, so not the ideal getaway for the German driver in the Sauber. Over the curbs they come as they come out of Variante Alta. The two McLarens, Raikkonen and Coulthard, chased by both Renaults, Trulli and Button. They're ahead of Heidfeld, so Heidfeld down to 9th, then it's Massa in 10th place, then Jacques Villeneuve in 11th ahead of Panis, Sato, Frentzen, Sarlo and Eddie Irvine in 16th position.
And Fisichella way down. He somehow or other has gone from starting grid for Fisichella, then 15th all the way down to 19th place.
Across the line at the end of the first lap, Michael Schumacher with a 1.3 second advantage over brother Ralf, as third place man is Rubens Barrichello, just under a second behind Ralf himself. Then we've got Montoya trying to fend off the advances of Kimi Raikkonen. Behind Raikkonen, Coulthard dropping back a fraction into the clutches of Jarno Trulli and Jenson Button, and Montoya using every inch of the road here.
Yes, and Raikkonen pushing him very, very hard all the way, comes out of Villeneuve, closes up to the back of the Williams, but there on the acceleration up the hill, you can see where the difference in power lies. Montoya able to pull away very comfortably indeed from the young Finn. Then through the Piratella, the gap closes. You'll have that seesaw all the way around the circuit. But let's look again at this start.
Yeah, see if we can spot what happened to McNish towards the back of the field as well. The front gets away safely. The Renaults did make a good start, once again getting past Heidfeld. Ralf popped up into second position, and then everyone jostling for position down here.
Yeah, you can see the two Renaults, they're getting held up behind. I think it was Kimi Raikkonen, and then Coulthard on the outside managed to squeeze through pretty clearly.
Montoya's car wasn't that quick off the line, might indicate that he's starting a little bit heavier than some of the others, but likely that would just mean a deeper stop into the race rather than much different strategy, I would think.
Yeah, and a big lock up from Ralf as he tried vainly not to hit his brother. He got away with it, but could have been an incident where his two Schumachers once again take each other out.
So across the line for Michael Schumacher, establishing the fastest lap at a 1:26.8 straight off, and he's opened up the gap just a little more to 1.7 seconds.
And it's pretty much behind these two lead cars, team by team by team. But Michael Schumacher pulling a lead on his brother, and Barrichello and Clear Air behind, and then it's the battle going on with Montoya and Raikkonen. Then the two Renaults who weren't able to take advantage of that great launch control start that they had. They had a go down the inside, but unfortunately Raikkonen was aware, he saw it coming, and he was able to put himself in a position to stop that, and their momentum was coming to a halt.
Look at Felipe Massa, the second of the two Saubers, charging once again. You can see how aggressively he's driving. It's been like that all weekend. I should think Nick Heidfeld might be a little nervous watching his younger teammate right behind and thinking, well, I hope he doesn't try and make himself a hero on the early laps here, because he doesn't need that. Just the two Renaults coming through. Then there you are, the two Saubers. That is Massa, who keeps jogging around in the mirrors of Nick Heidfeld.
Yes, he is. He bobs that car around. His car looks actually marginally better at this point than Nick Heidfeld, certainly coming out of the Variante Alta. Look there, looking backwards from Nick Heidfeld. See the movement on that rear wing? Now, I don't think that's normally something you want to see too much of, but of course they can't be completely rigid, because in many cases then we've seen wing failures, but certainly movement on the wing of Nick Heidfeld's car. As we go back to Michael Schumacher coming across the line, leads lap 3.
Across the line they come. We've just heard from Alan McNish that simply lost drive off the line, that there wasn't, when he tried to launch, it didn't launch, unfortunately, and that's the end of it for Alan McNish, and a great shame. He has yet to have a finish yet, so very disappointing for the Scotsman in the Toyota.
On the field come out of Tamburello now, down into the Villeneuve chicane. Heidfeld still getting the attentions of his younger and very enthusiastic teammate Felipe Massa. In the meantime, Michael's climbing all the way up to the Piratella as the two Saubers just exit out of that Tossa hairpin bend.
Yes, there we are with on board now with Michael Schumacher in charge of this race in the early laps. Might have started with the car relatively light on fuel from pole position. It's always the opportunity to try and sprint away at the start, and if possible that Ralf might have started somewhat heavier, but we won't find that out, of course, until we get deeper into this race.
It's 3.1 seconds as they come into the Alta, but as they went across the start, finished straight at the beginning of this lap, it was 2.2 seconds. So the pace of Michael Schumacher, particularly in that middle section of the circuit, is blinding, and there's no answer Ralf Schumacher currently has.
The cars come in 2 by 2 at the moment, all the way down to 12th place. We have team formation, except for just right up front where Michael and Barrichello are split by the Williams of Ralf Schumacher. After that, we've got the 2 McLarens, the 2 Renaults, then the 2 Saubers, and then the 2 BARs. And there you can watch them there, the Renaults, the 2 Saubers. In the background, you could just see the white cars. That's Jacques Villeneuve and Olivier Panis running in 11th and 12th. Frentzen is in 13th place. Sato 14th, Mika Salo in 15th. Then it's Bernoldi 16th, Fisichella in 17th, Irvine 18th ahead of Webber 19th. De La Rosa, our final runner, in 20th position.
Well, this group of cars, it's all basically being led by David Coulthard, Jarno Trulli, Jensen Button, Nick Heidfeld, Felipe Massa, and David Coulthard dropping away from his teammate Kimi Räikkönen. And this, we're on now lap 5 as we go back on board with Michael Schumacher.
And look at how the gap has opened up a little bit by little bit over the last few laps. It was 0.4 of a second on lap 2. It's 0.9 of a second now on lap 4. And of course, Michael Schumacher, fastest man on circuit. Looking at the battle here for 15th position, the white and red car, Mika Salo in the Toyota, and he's coming under increasing pressure from the orange arrows of Enrique Bernoldi.
And he's being followed by a thoroughly, I'm sure, depressed and demoralised Giancarlo Fisichella in one of his 2 home Grand Prix, and Fisichella not able to really respond. Eddie Irvine behind him, Webber, and then De La Rosa, the last of the field.
Well, there is Alan out of the car, back in the pits, and what a disappointing way to start the San Marino Grand Prix, not even getting off the line with a drivetrain problem. Toyotas have run very reliably, we have to say, in the first few Grand Prix of this year, and I suppose the reliability issues have to catch up with them sometimes.
Yes, it is a part of Formula One, and the dream start to their career. And there we see on Ford Takuma Sato, and that is a retirement by the looks of things. Sounds like a gearbox problem or the hydraulics. That was something that Jordan's had a problem with here over the weekend, and looks like Sato's drive, he was doing a good job running strongly in 14th place. He's going to drop all the way back.
Yeah, that's very disappointing. He needs the finishes, he needs the miles at the moment. The very talented young Japanese driver, but he does need to get a few race finishes under his belt to increase the confidence. Looking at the leaders coming through now, Montoya still running in 4th place. There's Kimi Räikkönen in 5th position in the McLaren Mercedes, staying pretty well with the Williams ahead of him, both running on the Michelin tyre. Sato's made it back into the pits, standard to change the tyres anyway, but it's some sort of electronics, or maybe, as you said, John, a hydraulic problem that's causing trouble for him.
And I think Felipe Massa, I'm just looking down, I thought he might have sneaked past, but he's not. He is still behind Nick Heidfeld, and this battle between the 2 Sauber drivers, every bit as intense as we see within Williams, Ferrari or McLaren.
Yeah, this is the battle of the race at the moment, I have to say. Massa very close behind his more experienced teammate, but finding a way through, and particularly finding a way through safely without risking both cars, might be extremely difficult. So Massa chasing, hounding all the time, but I would say, John, perhaps unless he can make something happen in the next lap or two, perhaps he should just ease off a moment and wait to see what develops over the next few laps.
Yes, he can. He's got Jacques Villeneuve behind him, and that's just only 1.3 seconds, so he can afford to back a little bit, but not back too far, because if Villeneuve gets the sense that Massa might be just relaxing a little bit, then it'll give Villeneuve the momentum and impetus to move forward, and further trouble left front wheel coming off on the Jordan. So we thought it sounded like a hydraulic problem when he came into the pits, but now taking off left front, and it seems that he's been in the pits now over a lap. And further disappointment for the Jordan team, who really had hoped by coming to Europe and circuits like Imola, the reliability factor had been balanced pretty well in their favour. This one certainly not working for them.
That's right, John. Here last year they had one of their better results. They had both cars in the points, with Trulli, who was driving for Jordan then, and Frentzen 5th and 6th. Well, we're looking at the pits channel and we see that he is coming back out onto the track. So Sato back on, but there's no chance that either of these cars are going to get in the points this weekend. Jordan had both cars in the points last year.
Well, Michael comes out of that chicane, and every lap he's been putting in the fastest lap upon fastest lap, and the gap now some 5.4 seconds. So Ralf Schumacher in 2nd place.
We gather it's a gearbox problem for Sato. There he is, and he slowed right down again. He got out of the pits a second ago, but he's crawling along now.
Yes, when they say gearbox problem, I think what usually it is the hydraulics that operate the gearbox, or the electronics that operate the hydraulics that operate the gearbox. So complex, no longer like gearboxes where you had simply a gear lever in the car and you made gear changes manually. They're all done off a steering column. We saw, look at Sato, why does he not just pull the car off the track? He's got a flurry of cars. He's now, thank you, pulled off just before the Villeneuve chicane. He should have pulled off, in fact, on the exit of Tamburello. He was trying to get the car back, no doubt, to the pits, but it's a waste of time.
Yeah, a waste of time, but that's it. The day is done for Takuma Sato. So we've lost 2 cars out of this Grand Prix already, and we've only had 7 laps of it so far. Alan McNish didn't get away at the line, and now Takuma Sato becomes the next retirement with some sort of gearbox-related problem, whether it be electronics, hydraulics, or whatever. Might even be that steering wheel. We were looking at the steering wheels earlier on, and they can cause problems, but I'm sure they changed that as a matter of course in the pits just now. Watching Felipe Massa, great view this. You've got Nick Heidfeld just ahead. You can really see how it is in the early laps of a Grand Prix as you ride aboard Felipe's car, and the way that you've got this sort of bunching up process going on with the Renaults just ahead of them.
Indeed, and they're being bunched up because David Coulthard's pace is slower than that of Kimi Raikkonen's, but you almost sense that Felipe Massa's eyes are like a pair of lasers on the back of Nick Heidfeld's car. That waved yellow flag just to indicate that there's a car off track. That was Takuma Sato's Jordan was pulled off, and just to warn drivers that there was a car off track at that point. Should slow down a little bit, but it's always judged so finely by drivers.
Just looking at the pace of Montoya and the fact that he wasn't particularly fast off the line, John, it does look as though maybe they've started that Williams a little heavier than Ralph's car. He's 4th place. He's some 13 seconds behind Michael Schumacher, the race leader, and he's still got Kimi Raikkonen behind him. But Montoya not able to maintain the pace of Ralph, Schumacher and Barrichello ahead, so he may well have a slightly heavier car at this stage.
Yes, and he's some 6 seconds behind Rubens Barrichello in that 3rd place, and Raikkonen once again beginning to run down to Juan Pablo Montoya, and David Coulthard some further 4.3 seconds behind the young Finn, and then behind Coulthard you've got this 6-5 car train with Trulli, Button, Heidfeld, Massa, and now Jacques Villeneuve trying to join into their game.
Yeah, Villeneuve's about another 2 seconds behind this battle, but it is more promising from BAR Honda with their cars running in 11th and 12th places. Frentzen in 13th place is about 2.4 seconds behind Panis and running fairly consistently there. Bernoldi has moved up, by the way, in the course of this race because he's now into 14th position. We saw him behind Salo a little while ago. Well, he has got ahead of him now.
And in fact, Enrique Bernoldi is just behind his more experienced teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 13th place.
That's right, so look, Arrow's hoping to get both cars to the finish here today. Some more great onboard shots here as we travel around this 3-mile track aboard the Formula One cars as they battle for position. And Michael Schumacher setting a new fastest lap at 1:26.183. So still pulling away bit by bit from his brother Ralph in the Williams BMW as this battle between the Renaults continues to hot up. It's Jarno Trulli, the Italian, who heads this particular queue. Englishman Jenson Button right behind him, and we look at the leader now. That's the gap back to 2nd place man Ralf Schumacher.
Well, 7 seconds as they came across start-finish line. It's up to 7.7 seconds, and Rubens Barrichello now just within a second of the German for that battle for 2nd place.
Just looking on board here with Ralf Schumacher. Notice how that rear wing isn't shimmying. Like when we saw the onboard picture on the Sauber, we saw that little sideways shimmy. No sign of that at all on the Williams BMW.
No, I thought what we saw on the back of Nick Heidfeld's car was probably excessive. There has to be a certain amount of movement. There's no such thing as a rigid rear wing.
Trying to listen up on the radio. Fairly brief communication as he came past the pits there.
Just a quick burst as Ralph went past the Williams pits, the best place to send your messages. Of course, this is a hilly circuit, and some parts of the circuit maybe radio reception not as good as when you're in front of the pits.
So we have had 10 laps completed out of the 62 due to be run, and still this battle going on for what is 7th position is probably the most entertaining on track currently. with Jarno Trulli, Jenson Button following his every move, shadowing his wheel tracks. And I don't think Jarno Trulli's likely to make a mistake, but Jensen's certainly not going to relieve the pressure on him. He's got to watch out anyway, because Nick Heidfeld very close behind him, and Felipe Massa, perhaps the most dangerous of the bunch, the novice driver, but very quick here. A winner in the Euro Formula 3000 Championship around this Imola track. He loves the place, enjoys banging it over the curbs, as we've seen all weekend, and he's looking feisty.
But the problem here in Imola is you've got short straights, slow corners such as Acqua Minerale. Anywhere quick, you can't get close to a car, and consequently you're always having to play throttle on, brakes on, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. We see Trulli just edging marginally slightly ahead of Jenson Button. That just happened. You know, a driver needs sometimes just to catch his breath, then maybe try a further surge to run up to your, happens to be his teammate in this instance, the car ahead of you. If you get stuck, as we're seeing these four cars now running one behind the other, you just get sort of transfixed into a given speed, and you will never ever pass that car ahead of you.
There is our race leader then. Michael Schumacher goes through, and the gap between himself and Ralph up to 8.8 seconds as they crossed the line a moment ago to complete 11 laps. There is Rubens Barrichello, and the gap between those has narrowed slightly. Rubens hunting down the younger of the Schumacher brothers.
Yes, under a second as they came across the line, and visually, well, it's under a second as well. And the Ferrari, seemingly as the fuel loads burn off, and the tyres also, they're now on lap 12. So if we're going to see a two-stop strategy in this race, the teams are approximately halfway through what will be their first stop. So Rubens Barrichello and the Bridgestone tyres and the Ferrari seem to be gaining on a mixture of Michelin, Williams and BMW.
Great shot through the Variante Alta as they flick direction change from one way to the other. Ross Brawn watches the proceedings. Another great view here on our interactive coverage. Digital F1 right in the middle of the action, and you're riding behind the front wing here of Rubens Barrichello.
Listen just how close that 7-speed gearbox is. It's almost like a motorcycle, the sound you get from the engine, from that onboard system. Then across the line again, 0.7 of a second, gained a tenth of a second in that lap.
But the gap still going out to Michael up front, 9.7 seconds now, the gap between the race leader, and he's just set a new fastest lap, Michael Schumacher, at a 1:25.677.
And not only that, he's actually got the ultimate lap, he's got the fastest in each of those segments. So Michael Schumacher continues to extend his lead over his younger brother. It's now just under the 10 seconds, 9.7. And Rubens Barrichello beginning to give Ralph a bit of a hurry up, as we again see Jarno Trulli starting to stretch away slightly from Jenson Button in the second of the Renaults. And the battle with the two Saibers continues unabated, with Heidfeld and Massa in 9th and 10th places.
Yes, let's ride on board with Heidfeld again for a moment, and Massa was a little bit wide of the apex that last time. Let's watch that rear wing again. You can see again that little bit of shimmying. It's not a problem, it's just a difference really in the construction of the rear wing. So just showing how these different cars respond under the rigorous conditions of a Grand Prix. Sliding over the curve a bit there,
yes,
too.
I mean, they'll be all over the place, and that's the trouble when you get into a race like this. You've got four cars running almost equidistant. No one's able to gain and no one's able to push. So they'll end up slowing each other down eventually, and they'll do more damage to their car. But just trying to figure out what's going on within the top four, looking down to Juan Pablo Montoya. I mean, it's inconceivable in my view that they would set him out in a one-stop strategy, but maybe the reason that we're seeing Montoya running in 4th place, some 20 seconds behind Michael Schumacher, is because Michael is on a two-stop. And could it be that Williams are taking the biggest punt of the weekend and sent one of their cars on a two-stopper, the other on a one-stopper?
Well, that would be quite something if Montoya was on a one-stopper. He's quite a long way down, as you can see now, 20 seconds behind the race leader. The fact is, it's quite a short pit lane here, and if you get to just a little bit more than Michael's got now, you need about 21, 22 seconds advantage over somebody to be able to come in and get back out in front of them. It's a different story here to the last race in Interlagos, where a long pit lane meant you lost quite a good deal of time coming through the pits itself.
Yeah, it's an important pit lane here, but the trouble is it's also very narrow. And the speed limit, of course, like every circuit, has got to be rigorously obeyed, but it is one of the shorter pit lanes in the Grand Prix fields, and it does allow teams, therefore, to have a wider latitude in terms of what they might think about. But the problem always been here, and since the circuit has been altered, it has been about brakes, that the brakes take a hammering. They never really get a chance to recover. You're braking heavily from high speed into the chicane just prior to start finish, then you accelerate up to 185 miles an hour, and then it's hard on the brakes again as you go into the Tamburello, and the brakes never get that moment just to relax.
Well, interesting to see whether that happens. You have to say, looking at the lap times, Ralf Schumacher lapping in the mid 126 bracket, the 1 minute 26, but Montoya consistently about half a second slower than that. Now we know that in their driving abilities there's not half a second difference between them. They've always been very evenly matched, these two, so it certainly indicates Montoya's car is a fair bit heavier than Ralf Schumacher's car at this point in the race.
The only other possibility that you might try to do is fill up Montoya's car to the brim and let him go very deep into this almost the middle sector of the race, and not quite do a one stop, but make a very, very short first stop or a very, very short second stop, depending on what the team think is going to get them position. The most important thing is to find track position, because when the leaders do start to go in for their pit stops, they're going to come back out and probably come back out in traffic. And if they can let Montoya, for example, stay out and run much later, paying the penalty now, but run much later without having the penalty of also having to go through cars that have been lap cars, then it's one of those calculations teams look at, they think about it, they spend hours mulling over what is the right thing to do with one of our two cars.
Well, it'll all come out in the wash, no doubt. 14 laps have been completed so far, and as you say, we're about just over halfway through what would be the first stint if they're on a two-stop. Looking at the super slow motion action, bouncing over the curbs, Jarno Trulli, then Jenson Button.
Yes, fairly supple across the curbs. Just look at the Sauber. The Sauber, particularly in the case of Massa, always looks more aggressive, a stiffer car. You can see the way Massa just bumps across those three curbs and loads up the outside wheel on each occasion.
So he's still in there. Look, he's still hunting, still looking for any opportunity to hustle his way past Nick Heidfeld, his teammate, just ahead of him. But so far he hasn't found that little gap that he requires, or managed to encourage a mistake out of the German just ahead of him. And it's much the same story with the two Renaults running in tandem at this point in 7th and 8th places. Don't forget the McLarens are still running 5th and 6th. Behind Montoya in 4th position, but nobody can seem to do anything about Michael Schumacher, running away up front at the moment. 10.6 seconds his advantage, and Michael once again faster on the next lap. On the first segment, looks as though he's going to put in another very quick lap now.
And Raikkonen also falling away from Juan Pablo Montoya. He was within a second and a half a few laps earlier, but now that gap is up to 3.4 seconds, and still Michael Schumacher setting faster sector time after sector time, as he clearly demonstrates his desire to build up such a cushion that will enable him to come in, have his car refueled, new set of rubber, and get back out. Certainly in case of Montoya, he's getting close to the point where he could do that.
You're looking at the fact that Barrichello's lap time slightly slower than Michael's, but then of course he's got the problem of Ralf Schumacher just ahead of him, and he's within the distance that his car is being upset by having a car ahead. Let's just ride with Michael for a second here. Down towards Acqua Minerale, and you're right about that gear change, John. It's so crisp, isn't it? This new gearbox, it's a newly developed gearbox specially for the 2002 Ferrari, and the change is so fast and so crisp between with that V10 engine. Now into the pits, Nick Heidfeld. This is a relatively early stop then for Sauber, coming in on lap number 16. It looked like a routine stop. Interesting to see that.
Well, it may again just to give Nick Heidfeld the chance to get out of sync. This battle that's going on, it's really going nowhere. Two Saubers stacked up behind the two Renaults, and it seemed to me Nick Heidfeld dived into the pits rather unexpectedly. Maybe Heidfeld felt that he could do something, and but of course he's got a radio, but if the radio communication isn't going on between the driver and the people in the pits, so Heidfeld, by doing what he thought maybe was necessary, might have cost himself time in the process.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Meanwhile, Michael Schumacher's just set another new fastest lap, and it is a new lap record. The record existed, was held by Ralf Schumacher from last year, 25.524, and Michael now just below that, 25.359. So he's still pulling away. The gap to Ralf Schumacher, 11.6 seconds.
And the battle for... okay, now see the second of the two Saubers, Felipe Massa. What was meant to be the team say on schedule pit stop for Nick Heidfeld. Now the team clearly must be aware that Felipe Massa is coming in. And again, I suspect that the reason this is being done is simply to get the two cars out of sync. They're capable of running quicker than the two runners ahead of them, but clearly they've realised on lap 18 there's nothing they can do to get past them on the track. So if you can't get past them on the track, alter your strategy, bring the cars in early, get out of sync, and then when those two runners make their pit stops, hopefully you'll have made up that time that you've been effectively losing running behind them and more, and get ahead of the two runners.
Yes, well, Massa comes back out again. They're making an early stop. It may only still be 2 stops for those guys, but as you say, just using the timing here to bring them in slightly earlier than some of the others. Michael Schumacher then, here he comes, completing another lap. That's 18 completed by him. As we look through the list, it's Ralf Schumacher second, Barrichello in third, Montoya in fourth, then Raikkonen and Coulthard, Trulli, Button, and then the first of the Saubers coming back out again. I think he will have rejoined well, we'll have a look and see when they've come past the line once again in just a moment.
Interesting just to watch what happens to the two Saubers now they're back out. Heidfeld, of course, that pit stop cost him heavily, drops all the way back down to 16th. We have to wait and see for Massa where he has fallen back to, but if they're not in traffic, I think Felipe Massa looks like he's got pretty much a clear track in the minute to see whether he can start really getting on with the programme. Certainly in that second sector he's indicating that he can, because he's just done his first personal fastest through that sector, and we wait to see when he comes across start-finish line whether he can achieve that as well. Massa's dropping down, we see he's 13th. Will he remain in 13th?
I think he will, yes. He's ahead of Salo on the track, so Massa rejoins in 13th position, having made his pit stop. Heidfeld a bit further down than that because the team was not quite ready for him, so he lost a bit more time. He's now down in 16th position. Michael Schumacher, so just lap by lap, trying to eke out that advantage. Fastest middle sector again here for the 4-times world champion and 3-times winner at this race in the past. Here he comes out of that final corner over the curb. You remember a few years ago, John, Mika Hakkinen had the lead of this race, lost it over that curb and went into the pit wall. That was a bit of an embarrassing one.
Very embarrassing, and Mika, one of those days when it just didn't work for him. But Michael Schumacher very shortly going to catch up to the last of the runners at Pedro de la Rosa and put de la Rosa down 1 lap, and that's within the space of 20 laps of this Grand Prix.
So the two Renaults coming through now without the attentions of the Saubers behind them. Jensen Trulli still in 7th place, Button in 8th, and we'll see whether they, with that bit of space, I wonder whether Villeneuve will catch up to the back of these two. He's still there, Jack, running in 9th position.
Yeah, it looks to me as if Villeneuve is running about where he should be. I don't think he's got enough pace to move forward to the two Renaults, but what is going to be interesting is that once Michael starts to catch up to Pedro de la Rosa, he's got Weber ahead of him, Irvine not very far ahead of him, then Fisichella and Salo, those 5 cars. Will Michael Schumacher and Ferrari make a decision to make what we would call an early pit stop once again to avoid the problems of having to get through traffic, slow traffic, on a circuit where it may not be easy just to maintain the momentum, the pace that Michael Schumacher has shown us he can do when the track's been clear.
Now, there's been a problem for Nick Heidfeld. You remember we saw him in a moment ago. Well, I have to tell you, he's come back into the pits for watching Montoya, but there is Nick Heidfeld. The fuel didn't go aboard properly, so poor Nick Heidfeld, who qualified 7th, looked set to score points here this afternoon, despite a rather poor getaway initially. Well, now I have to say the likelihood of scoring points has pretty much disappeared with that extra stop.
Well, Super Nick is not going to be super happy. A disappointing day, lost momentum at the start and wasn't able to maintain that 7th grid position he had. The two Renaults got ahead of him, and then he was under pressure all the way from his young teammate as we...
We've got yellow. That's because Fisichella's off at the side of the track, John. I don't know whether he's gone off. It's actually just down here.
Yeah, we're looking to see that car. There's... No, it's not. That's...
He's pulled off on the right, I think, and it may just be a mechanical problem, or perhaps he lost it coming out of the chicane.
I think it's been a mechanical problem. In fact, that's where he stopped during the weekend with a hydraulics problem, again, gearbox related. So the Irvine, Mark Webber running between the two Jaguars. Fantastic for Minardi and for Mark Webber. What must Jaguar be feeling?
Now, Michael catching the back end of the field now, John, coming up to De La Rosa, Webber and Irvine. I wonder whether he's going to carry on picking his way through here, or whether Ferrari will decide this is a good opportunity to bring him in for his first stop so he doesn't get held up. The leader obviously has it easier going past people, but it's still not easy. Meanwhile, let me tell you that Renault seem to be getting ready in pit lane and are preparing for a pit stop of their own. So one of those two cars, either Trulli or Button from 7th and 8th, due to come in.
Blue square on your screen that indicates blue flags being shown to those three cars ahead. Pedro de la Rosa will have to move out of the way pretty quickly. Michael Schumacher will run him down. It's difficult for de la Rosa because the gap is, and Michael now will expect de la Rosa to get out of the way. If he doesn't, he will be in trouble. Well, he didn't get out of the way, and he should have done.
Well, the yellows were just there, of course, John, and so Michael couldn't have overtaken at that point, but as soon as they're out of the yellows, de la Rosa moves out of the way.
So that will have cost Michael Schumacher time. He will have lost maybe a second or so because of that situation with the yellow flags and the blue flags. As they then dive down now into the Acqua Minerale.
Well, Webber will be quite happy about that because it's taken a bit of pressure off from de la Rosa. Now, this was Fisichella pulling off a second ago.
Yeah, same part of the track he pulled off in practice, and one would be, I think, fairly accurate in suggesting there was a mechanical problem, and probably one similar to that he was afflicted by in qualifying when he had to run and jump into the spare car.
So he becomes our third retirement of the day, joining his teammate Takuma Sato and Alan McNish, who went out right at the start when the car refused to get off the line, unfortunately. Michael Schumacher now closing on Mark Webber, who does a great job there of moving straight out of his way and letting the leader through. So no time lost for Schumacher. 12.8 seconds his advantage last time around.
And good work from Mark Webber, because he can try vainly, I suspect, to follow in Michael Schumacher's footsteps. Certainly the Minardi was pretty quick down the straights in some of those sections we saw. Midway was 13th quickest, 303 kilometres against the 308 of the Ferrari, and hoping that he can maybe get sucked along and be drawn up again. Those yellow flags being waved down where the car of Fisichella has been removed. I don't know why they're still waving the flags. Well, the car is still at the side of the track. That's why Eddie pulls over to the right, lets his former teammate go through, and good job from Irvine as well.
Yep, he makes sure that Michael gets through cleanly without a problem. Michael did lose about a second on that last lap. You're about right there, John, when he got held up slightly because of the yellows down on the exit of that chicane. 11.8 seconds his advantage over Ralph last time.
Got Jensen Button. No, yes, it is.
Trulli. Yeah, it's Jarno Trulli into the pits. So Jarno making his stop. He comes in from 7th. This could give Button a little opportunity. If he can put in a couple of quick laps here, 7.8 second stop for Jarno Trulli, good one. If he can put in a couple of quick laps, Button might be able to gain a position relative to his teammate. And I'm sure that the Englishman will be pushing extremely quickly. In fact, he's just set a new personal best time in that first sector, Jensen Button, now that he's got a little bit of clear air ahead of him.
And Benoldi into the pits as well. So the first of the two arrows running, he was running in 12th place directly behind. And
we've got a penalty for Heidfeld. Well, it's all going wrong for him, isn't it? Nick Heidfeld, not only did he have to make a second stop, but in his haste and perhaps in his frustration, he's gone over the pit lane speed limit.
Yeah, when it goes wrong for you, it goes wrong everywhere. And for Nick Heidfeld, he'll want to walk away from this Grand Prix. Now the Renault team preparing for Jensen Button to come in. Button pushing clearly very hard at all the sectors because he's put up personal bests in the first, personal best in the second. Of course, that he can't do that in the third one because he's going to come into the pit lane. But nevertheless, once he's been clear of Jarno Trulli, who he was running behind, he's been able to up his speed. And in fact, we're looking all around the field. Kimi Räikkönen still some 5.4 seconds behind Montoya in that 4th place. And Jarno Trulli, of course, he's been into the pits, so we have to wait and see where he will filter back into the field. Button into the pit lane now.
Yes, and well, what a shame for Nick Heidfeld. Here he is pushing hard, but the race effectively all over for him now that he's picked up a penalty as well. In the pits, there is Jensen Button then having his fuel stop. Now, will he get back out ahead of his teammate, Jarno Trulli? Trulli's just coming through the last chicane at the moment, and he will get out ahead of him.
And the pit stop's identical time, 7.8 seconds. Trulli's got the run into Tamburello, but he's not close enough. Jensen Button has moved forward. So that last lap, when he had the opportunity to really get in 3 good strong sectors, have worked for the Brit, and he's now 1 place ahead.
Great stuff. That is what Formula One is all about, making the most of your opportunities. That's what Jensen did.
Well, somebody else who's making use of his opportunities is Montoya. Haven't talked about Montoya very much, but suddenly he's gone fastest in that first sector. Once again, Michael Schumacher, another fastest race lap, 1:25.183. But Montoya suddenly coming alive in that first sector, whether he maybe got the benefit of a tow from somebody, we don't know. Middle sector time, nothing unusual, just a normal time through that, but suddenly the times come from nowhere.
Yeah, so Montoya, keep an eye on him, but he is some 27 seconds off the leader now.
But Ben, he's also now gone fastest in that third sector, a 25.566. Now that's just about 0.4 of a second slower than race leader Michael Schumacher. Whether it's because the fuel load on Montoya's car is now at a level where he's able to run harder, he can push harder. Remember, if you're doing a one-stop strategy in this race, you're going to be very, very heavy on fuel. You've got to be very gentle, easy on your brakes. You can't use the brakes to their full effect because otherwise you'll wear the things out. We've seen all weekend how much carbon dust has been coming out from the front wheels in particular, under braking from high speeds.
Michael Schumacher's really pushing hard at the moment. We've just seen these two, Ralph and Rubens Barrichello, who are second and third, getting past Nick Heidfeld. But the positions see Michael now on a very quick lap. It looks as though he's going to set another new fastest lap on lap number 24 out of 62. And further on, we can see a number of people still to make, well, all these guys up front still to make their first pit stops. Schumacher leading them across, and he's into the 1 minute 24 bracket.
Yeah, 1:24.730. That was a stunning lap from Michael Schumacher. By far and away the quickest lap. He pulled out 0.4 of a second in his previous fastest lap, and his previous lap, which is the one that he just now recorded, was about a 25.3, 25.4. So stunning lap from Michael Schumacher. And remember how much he was responding to the pace. Montoya picked up pace on that last lap. Once again, got personal best in the first sector. Nothing special in the second and third. So Montoya responding in this 26th lap of 62.
Michael's got some clear space ahead of him at the moment. The next car that he'll have to lap is Felipe Massa, but he's down at the Variante Alta already as Michael turns into the second part of Acqua Minerale. So he's got a lap or two here to put in some quick laps without getting into traffic again.
This is where Michael Schumacher really is so outstanding. He's able to push. We're now about a third of the way into the race. He's pushing every lap, every sector is coming up purple on our computers, and he's got the reserves and the car to give it.
Now Ralph has to do the same, John. He has to scythe his way through this traffic as quickly as possible, but can he do that in the same way that Michael seems to?
Well, difficult place to do it coming down into the Ravazza. Can get out of the way. Yes, he did. Well done. Pedro de la Rosa put himself offline onto the dirty part of the racetrack. A lot of rubber now from these tyres rolling to offline, but Ralph gets through. Barrichello will be keeping him honest all the way through, and it's difficult to see just whether advantages fall into one or the other. If Barrichello could swip, no, basically the same distance.
Another new lap record for Michael Schumacher at 24.656. He is flying up front, and things looking very good for the Ferrari as the team's having a good look at the tyres as they've come off the Toyotas here. Gustav Brunner, designer of the car, making a quick study of the Michelins. And one of the arrows has pulled off. It's Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
And that's down at Acqua Minerale. He's just pulled the car off. And it's down behind. How he got there, I do not know. I have to look and see from a higher camera angle to see precisely where he is on the circuit. He's off the track on the grass clearly, but how he got there, we have to wait to see. But Michael Schumacher still just blistering the field. Fastest sector in the first sector, again, normal time in the second. The difficulty he has is, of course, he will run into traffic from time to time. As we watch this battle going on for second place, as Ralf Schumacher climbs up. You've got Irvine ahead of him, and Bernaldi ahead of Irvine, so this battle between Rubens Barrichello in third place, chasing Ralf Schumacher in second, and Eddie Irvine may not be just quite so easy on Ralf Schumacher or Rubens Barrichello.
Olivier Panis has just been into the pits, coming back out again now. Looked like a fairly routine stop, as there we get a close-up picture of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who's just getting out of the arrows. Another non-finish, I'm afraid, for Heinz-Harald. He has had a finish this year, but nothing really representative.
Good chance now for Rubens Barrichello, as Eddie Irvine was on. Rubens, you can see Eddie pulls over to the right side of the track. Now Barrichello looking to swoop down the inside. Irvine gives him room, does he? No! I thought Eddie was going to let him go through. So it's all swung back to the favour of Ralf Schumacher. Barrichello didn't have the courage of his convictions to force the situation, and now Eddie should be falling over himself to get out of the way. He will do on the exit of the Villeneuve chicane. He'll move over, let Rubens go through. Rubens will not be very happy with that. There you go, the hand signal saying thank you very much. Yeah, I think that was a hand signal of appreciation of Irvine being so cooperative, and that's the sort of behaviour you expect from an Irishman on a Grand Prix track. For to the driver that was really driving the car, Eddie should still be in his mind.
Well, Rubens gets through eventually, but it certainly lost him a bit of ground to Ralf Schumacher, who was 0.4 of a second behind them as they crossed the line last time around. Now, let's take another look at the replay here. Just getting down the inside into Tosa, and Eddie giving him space, but, well, there, the one-finger salute from Rubens Barrichello.
Yes, very Brazilian sort of acknowledgement of Eddie's cooperation. Lack
of there, yes. Jacques Villeneuve's just been into the pits as we see Michael Schumacher now coming up behind Olivier Panis, who came in a moment ago, but Panis gets cleanly out of the way. Michael's last lap, a 24.851, not another new lap record, not quite, but he's still the only man running in the 1 minute 24s as Mika Salo pushed back into the pit garage.
Yes, and that looks like it's the end of the day for the Toyota team. They stick the fans into the radios just to get rid of some of that heat soak that happens when a car comes to a standstill so quickly, but nevertheless, this lead of Michael Schumacher is currently 16.8 seconds ahead of his brother, but probably more critically it's some 30.8 seconds ahead of Juan Pablo Montoya. And we're trying to convince ourselves that Montoya is on a one-stopper. I don't know whether anybody else is convinced of that, but certainly there's no reason to believe Montoya would be so far behind in this 62-lap race, and it wasn't anything other than a single-stop race for Montoya.
Yeah, but the point is they're all going so deep into this race, John, they could all make it pretty much on one stop. Look at the fact that Michael has now done 28 laps out of 62, so they have complete flexibility by the looks of things, and I can't... I suppose Montoya may be able to make a shorter stop, but, well, a lot of them going very deep into this race before they make their stops. Ferrari, McLaren as well, going a long way.
Well, looks like Williams and I are beginning to think about the time to bring in either Ralf or Montoya. More likely to be Ralf if they have got differing fuel loads on. Last year, the pit stops for two stoppers all occurred around between laps 29, 28, up to 32. But mostly it was around at the late 20s, early 30s. Barrichello of the top six was the one that went into the deepest, into lap 32. But we're now on lap 38, looking forward as we go down into the Tamburello.
Yes, riding on board here with Rubens Barrichello, watching the ground flash beneath the front wing of this Ferrari, building up to speeds between the two chicanes, about 180 miles an hour.
But Ben, it's Barrichello, we just see it on screen there, it's Rubens Barrichello. We're talking about Michael Schumacher. Rubens Barrichello has just suddenly set the fastest lap, the lap record again. As we look at Heinz Harald and pondering what has he got to do to get this car to finish the Grand Prix. So Rubens suddenly on fire as he follows Ralf Schumacher down through the Peritello, down into the Acqua Minerale, and that lap came really from nowhere. 1 minute 20, well, the lap record 1:24.355.
Yeah, very impressive indeed from Rubens Barrichello as he closed back up to Ralf. That was really, he lost the lap the time before, remember, when he got held up by Irvine. That was on the previous lap. And the very next lap, when he's had some clear space, he's shown what sort of pace he's capable of doing. But once again, here at Imola, you get to within a certain range of the car in front, and it becomes very, very difficult to then get alongside.
A lot of the track made up purely of acceleration and braking, and another lap record now to Michael Schumacher, responding to Rubens Barrichello as we see the McLaren team beginning to prepare for a pit stop, as is Ferrari. So the pit lane is going to become a hive of activity, and that's down at the very beginning of the pit lane. The cars come off the track, they turn sharp left, then sharp right, and the Ferrari pit is literally the first pit as the Jaguar comes in as well. And that's Eddie Irvine in the first of the Jaguars. So we wait to see which car will come in first, whether it'll be Barrichello or Michael Schumacher. And just looking down, the gap that Michael Schumacher has to Ralf Schumacher, 17 seconds. The gap to Montoya, 32 seconds.
Michael's been in blistering form, and talking of blisters, not quite a blister, but a very worn-looking right front on David Coulthard's car. Williams also preparing to receive somebody, and they're sending him back out there.
Yeah, that was a new set of tyres.
New set of tyres. I thought it was worn, that one.
Those are worn tyres, but you said they looked like they were completely rubbished. Well, that's what they put back on the car. Raikkonen goes back out on track. David Coulthard would have leapt up from 6th to 5th place with that pit stop. In the meantime, Williams preparing as well as Ferrari, so we wait to see which of the two Ferraris is going to be into the pits.
New set of tyres for the Bridgestone runners. Michelin leader. Yeah, here he comes. Michael Schumacher into the pits then. Crucial stop. He's driven a superb opening stint here. Faster every lap just recently, with the new lap record just been set and a new set of tyres going on board. Now let's see how long it stopped for. Not a huge amount of time, 7.4 seconds, and there was just a little interval as they got the fuel hose out of the inlet there. Michael Schumacher rejoining now as across the line goes Rubens Barrichello.
Well, that was a pretty good stop for Ferrari, 7.4 seconds. We saw 7.8 from both Renaults, but that was very much earlier. Ralf Schumacher now leaves as well, so first and second are in the pits. Barrichello will have taken the lead. Michael Schumacher will be second. Ralf may or may not join me. We'll look to see where Juan Pablo Montoya is.
Yeah, Montoya's ahead of Ralf on the road now, as Montoya's just gone into the Tamburello chicane, and Rubens Barrichello is now race leader for Ferrari. Now, the crucial bit is here for Rubens. If he can put in a couple of quick laps, he may well be able to move ahead of Ralf Schumacher, respectively. Remember, he's been sitting behind Ralf for all of this race so far, since Ralf made an excellent start from third. Rubens has shown his pace, but he's had to sit behind the Williams. If Barrichello can put in some quick laps here, he's got every chance of being second at the end of this race.
Pedro de la Rosa pulls out. He was in the pits for a stop. That's a retirement for Jaguar. The only car ahead of Rubens Barrichello right now is Olivier Panis, and he's about 3 corners ahead of him. Panis going down to the very end here, Bassa, as Rubens would have been exiting just here second of the Ravazza. So not a problem for Barrichello at this point, but he'll not be doing too many more laps as you see him dive into the pits.
Yeah, this is him into the pits, and what we will watch here is how quick this stop is, and will they get him out ahead of Ralf Schumacher. The team go to work, and this is going to be a close run thing. Ralf coming through the Ravazza corners at the moment. Ferrari will know exactly where he is.
7.4 seconds, the same as Michael Schumacher, but he's on the pit lane. He's got to run at 50 miles an hour, 80 kilometers per hour before he gets to the pit lane exit. Then he can nail it, and in comes Juan Pablo Montoya.
Yeah, Montoya's in across the line.
He's ahead of Schumacher. Ferraris are now 1 and 2.
Let's see as Montoya comes back out. 6.8 second stop for Montoya, not a particularly long stop, just about at half distance here. Well, it's very interesting. I wonder whether Montoya was running heavier, whether it's a difficult one to read. He's been that much slower than Ralf throughout the course of this race, but look at the 1-2 for Ferrari. Indeed. Barrichello ahead there of Ralf Schumacher.
I suppose it's inevitable. The Ferrari just is proving to be the quicker car on the day. Rubens was stuck behind Ralf. He was not really in any position to challenge him or threaten him for that second place. It all had to wait until the pit stops came. Rubens had that lap in which he could go and get a clear run after Michael Schumacher had made his pit stop. Came out, of course, behind Michael, but ahead of Ralf Schumacher. And now it is that Ferrari 1-2 that the Tifosi have come here to celebrate and enjoy.
Yeah, they'll be cheering their men on. We've seen it already. Lots of flag waving going on all around this Imola track. And the Ferrari fans are delighted to see the fact that Ralf Schumacher has been pushed back into third position in the Williams BMW. And now looking at the lap times, Barrichello again looking very quick indeed. They're coming around to complete another lap. Michael Schumacher has crossed the line already, has an advantage of 16.5 seconds over these two.
Well, there's a bit of pleasure in the Ferrari pits. They saw that Rubens got past before Ralf Schumacher could get back on track. As we go back to the race leader, Michael Schumacher, with a 16.5 second advantage over now his teammate, and brother Ralf Schumacher is a further 2.3 seconds behind Barrichello.
So, riding on board with Michael Schumacher. He'll be pretty happy with the way things are going in this race so far. No major problems to report. The car running as, like clockwork, as we expect these days from Ferrari, have to say. Some great reliability we've seen. It's only the second outing for the 2002 car, but lap after lap he's looking consistent. Let's just watch him here, down towards Ravazza.
Confirmation from the pits, in fact, that what we suspected was the problem for Fisichella has been confirmed, and that was a hydraulic problem which no doubt was related to the gearbox. A similar problem for Takuma Sato, and another sad day for the Jordan Honda team. And I'm sure Eddie Jordan will be wondering what has he got to do to get these two cars not just to the finish of a Grand Prix, but to finish in the points. He will be desperate to get off that 0 point that he and his team currently are on. This is David Coulthard's pit stop being planned.
They've gone a long way.
Yes, he has gone very deep into the lap 30. It's on coming in lap 35, in fact, so just over half distance he's gone before that pit stop has been made. David Coulthard was running in 5th place behind Montoya. Raikkonen was only 11 seconds behind him, so David will drop back, obviously, into 6th place, and in fact he will be in danger if he's not careful of Jenson Button. Jenson Button, if McLaren cannot get David Coulthard in and out very quickly, will be under pressure from fellow Brit. As Kimi Räikkönen comes round the chicane, he'll now take that 5th place away, but we have to watch and see, is there any sign of Jenson Button in the Renault?
Well, yeah, he's not far behind. Look, there's Jenson Button in the Renault coming
David
up.
coming down. It's going to be very close. Button's got the position. He's taken away that place from David Coulthard.
Well, there you go. That shows how hard Button's been pushing in recent laps, and he's managed to get ahead of Coulthard. Coulthard finds himself now behind teammate Räikkönen and behind the Renault of Jenson Button.
And that will be a real gut blow to David Coulthard, who's not only being beaten by his own teammate here this afternoon, but now he's got to face the prospect of trying to get past Jenson Button in the Renault. We saw the difficulties that both the McLarens had in Brazil to find a way past the Renaults. The speed is very similar in terms of top speed and power, but it doesn't matter how good the chassis is in the McLaren. If you haven't got the momentum to take you up and take you past, it looks like David's going to have a long drive to his next stop. Should there be a next stop? We don't know. We don't know whether anybody's going to make 2 stops, whether they've all changed the plot and gone for a single stop.
I think they probably will make a second stop. We saw a similar pattern last year, most of them going to about lap 28, lap 29, and then coming in around the mid-lap 40 region. So I would think we'll see them coming in again around lap 45, 46, most of them anyway, to make a second stop, and we'll see if that can affect things. It's all about being flat out the whole time. Button's proved that. He pushed his teammate in the early stages of this race, just managed to eke out enough of an advantage over his teammate on his pit stop, and he's been pushing ever since then, and that's allowed him to get out ahead of Coulthard. Michael Schumacher, meanwhile, dealing with some more traffic here.
Yes, Olivier Panis, who had been lapped previously, but Michael's pit stop redressed that situation, so now Michael once again puts a lap on Olivier Panis, and Panis running in 11th place. So 11th all the way down to 15th of now. Been lapped Mark Webber, currently in 15th and last place. De La Rosa, Sala, Frentzen, Fisichella, Sato and McNish, those are the 6 retirements that we've seen this afternoon.
So Michael now looks very comfortable up front. Let's just watch as we come down towards the Tamburello chicane here.
And just watch the ease. Everything just flows, the timing, everything's perfect. You've got a car that's working, you're working with the car, you're in harmony. And the space, the pace, the speed, absolutely, just this is perfect.
We're watching a master at work, as we said earlier on. And the Ferrari, so well suited to this Imola track after their additional testing they put in earlier this season. Had a tough time here last year, didn't get their calculations right with Bridgestone on which tyre to use, but this weekend, you have to say they have been the dominant force, both in wet and dry conditions. Michael taking that pole position in the last moments of qualifying, and look at this, lap after lap, just ticking off the curves, using all the road, but always very fast. Last time around, Barrichello was a fraction faster because Schumacher was lapping a car, but they're so consistent.
I think you've also give great credit to Bridgestone, because they came here knowing that Michelin would be very strong indeed. This was a circuit where Michelin won their first Grand Prix last year with Ralf Schumacher. They came from Brazil with a victory again that went against the form. They've dominated qualifying here, and they're dominating the race. And as good as Michael Schumacher and Ferrari are, I must give credit to Bridgestone, because they've produced stunning tyres for all their users.
Yeah, that's right, John, although there's quite a few Michelin runners behind them in the race at the moment. Top 2 are Bridgestone users. Then, of course, we've got Ralf Schumacher, Juan Pablo Montoya, 3rd and 4th. Then Räikkönen, Button, Coulthard and Trulli making out the top 8, all on Michelins behind the Ferraris. And then the next Bridgestone runner in 9th place, that's Felipe Massa, with Jacques Villeneuve some 8.5 seconds behind him, also on Bridgestones.
Ralf Schumacher running now in 3rd place, some 5.1 seconds behind Rubens Barrichello, who really moved forward very quickly, getting the advantage on that pit stop. Ralf couldn't get out just before Rubens Barrichello came past. Now you see the true pace that Rubens Barrichello has not been able to run at being illustrated, and Rubens' lap time is now running pretty much at the same level as Michael Schumacher. They're within, well, just under 1/10 of a second of each other on the last lap, whereas Ralf Schumacher running that little bit slower, 3/4 of a lap behind the two Ferraris.
Just looking at that super slow motion, beautiful line through that top chicane, the Variante Alta, not clipping the curb quite as heavily as they would in qualifying, of course. Michael completely aware that that puts quite a lot of load on the car. He just wants this car to make it through to the finish. He uses the curbs, but he doesn't bang the car over the curbs at this stage in the race.
No, a race is all about rhythm. Qualifying is about being frenetic, and there's somebody who is pretty frenetic. Felipe Massa in for the second time. And that's again fairly early. That was coming in at the end of lap 38. So the young Brazilian, 2 stops relatively early. And Rubens Barrichello now once again just illustrating what we've been saying, the pace of the Brazilian in his pursuit of his team leader, as well as getting away from Ralf Schumacher in 3rd place. A new lap record for the Brazilian, 1:24.170.
Pedro de la Rosa out of the race, sadly. And that means he joins our list of retirements. They are Mika Salo, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Giancarlo Fisichella, Takuma Sato and Alan McNish, all out of this race. But that new lap record for Rubens Barrichello, what a great job he did in qualifying yesterday. Just pipped to the post by his teammate, and now he's enjoying, relishing, having a bit of clear space in this 2002 car. You know, I just think he loves the feel of this car, the way he's driving it, so much confidence. And that fastest lap, once again, hasn't made much difference to the gap between himself and Michael. It's still some 15.7 seconds.
But you never know. There were rumours that emanated out of the Italian press that filtered through to the British press that Rubens was under threat in some senses, that he may be offered a drive with the team next year, but at a very reduced salary. You know, it's amazing how drivers respond to that type of sort of story that's drip-fed, leaked, or whatever. And Rubens doing a great job here for the team, running quicker right now than his teammate Michael. In fact, at a slow lap, a second a lap slower than what we've seen from Barrichello. So probably to do with traffic, as we got Jacques Villeneuve, who is ahead of Michael Schumacher. They come out of the Villeneuve chicane, and blue box on the side of your screen indicating that there's a blue flag and blue lights in the car. Jacques Villeneuve backs off, stays on the right-hand side, and lets Michael accelerate past, and they'll have a little bit of a chat and a wave, and a bit like jockeys in the Grand National at times.
Well, Villeneuve doing a fine job of getting out of the way. He doesn't have to worry because his teammate is the next one on the road, and there's a good 9 seconds between Villeneuve and Panis at this stage, 9th and 10th. Just a note, behind them is Massa in 11th, then it's Bernoldi in 12th, so the other Arrows is still running. Heidfeld, with his extra pit stops and speeding in the pit lane and all that sort of nonsense, is down in 13th place now, I'm afraid. 14th position for Eddie Irvine, and 15th place for Mark Webber, who has made 1 stop. He is the final runner at this point in the race, and in fact Jaguar and Minardi at the back of the field here have completed more laps than anyone else so far this year with their 2 cars. Well, they've both lost a car each in this race. One didn't start because it wasn't allowed to, wasn't qualified fast enough. De La Rosa, unfortunately, also a retirement now.
Well, Ralf Schumacher pushing, but that gap, 6.2 seconds. Again, Ralf Schumacher's times, 1/4 of a second, just under half a second slower than that of Rubens Barrichello and that of Michael Schumacher. But we see Renault preparing for, once again, either Jarno Trulli. It was Trulli who came in first the last time. Button, of course, benefited from that pit stop and found a place. Button in the last of the point-scoring positions in 6th place, and some 6.8 seconds behind Kimi Räikkönen in the lead McLaren.
Yeah, Button has had his fun and games. Nick Heidfeld has just come back into the pits to make a stop. This is a routine stop, but it's yet another visit to the pit lane for him.
He's been in 4 times this afternoon, 3 of them for pit stops, and one of them, of course, for that speed limit infringement.
Yeah, so poor day for Nick Heidfeld. He was so happy after qualifying yesterday as well, being the best of the rest effectively behind Ferrari, Williams and McLaren. And here we are with McLaren. Kimi Räikkönen running in 5th position. Now remember, Kimi and David Coulthard are tied on points at the moment in the Drivers' World Championship. They're both lying in 5th place on 4 points. Well, at the moment, Räikkönen's in the points and David Coulthard isn't, as we look at Jarno Trulli come in.
Yeah, but on the circuit, we're just looking at the position of Räikkönen and saying we're watching that as they're catching up. But go back to the pit stop. We saw a great stop from the Renault team, 7.8 seconds. Well, that's more than that this time. Jarno Trulli, 9.8 seconds. A lot more fuel went in for this, the run to the end for Trulli in his Renault.
just keep an eye as well on what's happening with Montoya in fourth. Oh, and just getting past there as they go through the first corner by Barrichello.
Yes, and that was Penis just ahead as well, but of course Penis a lap down. So for Barrichello, he slipped through again, just wanted to make sure he got ahead of the Renault before they went into that sequence of left, right and left, and then down to the Villeneuve chicane. So easy to lose your momentum, and when you've got it, you lose it easy, it's difficult to get back. Now focusing just ahead of him on Olivier Panis in the BAR, and he'll hope to swoop by him. I don't think it's going to happen into the Piratella, and it'll not happen down into Akman Minerale unless Panis deliberately pulls over. He does. Well done for Olivier Panis. Those new large mirrors for 2002 are fulfilling the job for which they were intended.
Now Trulli will try to put in some quick laps here because he might be able to threaten David Coulthard in the last part of this race. Meanwhile, coming into the pits, Jenson Button heading in for his pit stop. Now, this is a fairly early second stop considering how far they went initially, and the battle he's in is with David Coulthard, particularly, remember. Now, this will drop him behind David once again, and then we'll have to wait to see when David makes his second stop where these two end up. It's going to be quite a tussle between the two British drivers here this afternoon. The Scotsman David Coulthard, the Englishman Jenson Button. Button, much better form, of course, this year. The resurgence of the Renault team as they are now. They used to be Benetton, and Jenson Button thoroughly enjoying the speed of the new car.
9 second stop for Button, almost a second better than his teammate, and of course Button will really have to push on this out lap. It's always been the critical lap in a pit stop. The in lap, normally you're up to speed, but when you come in you have that momentary stop, you get fresh tyres, the car feels entirely different when you go back out. Of course it's been refueled as well, so there's more weight in the car, everything feels different, and it's up to the individual driver to who can adapt most quickly to that refreshed car and take advantage of it.
Well, we saw early in the race, John, that Trulli and Button were running very much together. If you remember, Trulli was actually ahead of Jenson. Well, with all this that's been going on, those two have made their stops, and Button coming back out, he's a long way ahead of Trulli, and that just gives you some idea of what Button did in the mid part of the race here today to be able to get away from his teammate Jarno Trulli, and we'll get a clearer picture of the gap between them as they come across the line next time.
Yes, we have to wait until the completion of that outlap for both the Renaults to see the respective positions as we watch Jarno Trulli as he comes down and closes up to the rear of Olivier Panis.
So Michael Schumacher completes lap number 43. He's just gone across the line then, and a 24.9 second lap, not the fastest we've seen by any means. Barrichello some 14 seconds behind him, so we'll wait for him to come through in a moment. The gap staying fairly constant between the two Ferrari drivers. There he is, 14.2 seconds this time around. So Rubens Garrett gained about half a second on that last lap. Ralf Schumacher's just crossed the line, a further 8 seconds behind in third position. And then we've got quite a long wait as we're still riding with Michael Schumacher. We're still waiting for Montoya to cross the line because he's another 17 seconds behind his teammate.
And he must be a very disappointed driver indeed. He's not been able to match what we assumed is the pace of Ralf Schumacher, which is probably the truer pace of the Williams BMW. We sort of tried to mask that by suggesting he was on a one-stop strategy. Whatever the problems for Montoya are, there's no speed there today for the Colombian.
25.5 he did last time around. 25.1 for Ralf Schumacher. Kimi Räikkönen just crossed the line in 5th place, and they're Raikkonen a minute behind the lead Ferrari here. That's a long, long way, isn't it? So, and then we wait for David Coulthard to come through, but again, he's some 15 seconds behind his teammate. There, we're just seeing David go through, and in fact, you can see how soon it is before Michael comes back past. So Michael Schumacher is in danger of lapping David Coulthard within a few laps.
Well, such is the pace of the Ferrari this weekend, both Michael Schumacher and Barrichello. It is such that everyone now up to 7th place has been lapped, and of course David Coulthard will have to make a second stop, and if that happens, then Michael Schumacher will have a lap on the McLaren, and that will be an even more bitter pill for the McLaren Mercedes-Benz team. It clearly is in need of something dramatic to happen. The problem is when teams are under pressure like this, there's no drama, it just takes time to rectify.
Riding on board here as we come down towards Tosa. This is on board the other Ferrari of Rubens Barrichello, climbing back up the hill towards Piratella. Let me just tell you that Button has been across the line now, so has Trulli, and Well, just looking at the interval between them, there's quite a big gap, some 20 seconds or so between the two of them. So Button did a good job in that mid part of the race to really pull away from his teammate.
Kimi Räikkönen. So this is the second and we believe final stop. Oh, and he's retiring. Räikkönen has pulled out. He drove back into the pits. As a second pit stop, we thought that was a scheduled stop, but he's just driven straight into the pits. The garage will be closed immediately. It's normal for McLaren to put up the shutters. They will not want anybody to know or look and see what may have been the problem. Räikkönen looks rearwards, which indicates that maybe engine or gearbox related.
Now see if we can spot it. Oh, look.
There's what was that fell off? And whose car was it that fell off?
Yeah, I'm not sure. We're looking at Nick Heidfeld coming through the chicane, but it was someone further ahead of him that had some part of the car fall off, and maybe that was something to do with Kimi Räikkönen's retirement. So out of fifth position for the McLaren Mercedes driver, as the Ferrari team now prepare to receive one of their cars right at the top end of that pit lane. Will it be Michael Schumacher, our race leader, or Barrichello, second place, who's closed up just a little bit more again in the last lap, the gap down to 13.6 seconds between the two Ferraris.
The McLaren team get all their paraphernalia, their airlines, they put them out of the way because they know that when a car which is directly ahead of them is going to come into the pits, when the pit is cleared, then those airlines have been known to snag rear wings, and not something you want to see happen. So they prepare for whichever Ferrari bit race leader, Michael Schumacher, or second place Rubens Barrichello. And there's some traffic just ahead of Michael as he comes down into it. Eddie Irvine and Bernaldi, those that no, it's David Coulthard, in fact. It's Coulthard that's just ahead. There we see Coulthard in the McLaren. There is Michael Schumacher, and Michael Schumacher going into the pits.
Yep, straight into the pits, that straight line entry, and gets down to the speed limit, 80 kilometers an hour, into the first pit. Not far to go down the pit lane before he gets to his spot, and then the tyres going aboard. Now, with this stop, it's likely that Barrichello, will he take the lead again? He comes out of that final corner. It'll be quite a close run thing, but there you go. With the speed limit, of course, in application, it's not a very close run thing. Barrichello retakes the lead.
7.4 seconds. Now, what is interesting to see is the lead. Oh, here because Ralph comes in as well for his second stop. But let's watch and see what Barrichello does, because he's got to push very, very hard indeed. He must forget about what's going on behind him with teammate Michael Schumacher. He's worried about this man in the pit lane.
Yeah, he gets back out, and Montoya just coming out of the final corner. So this might allow Montoya to go ahead of his teammate. There he is, ahead of Ralf Schumacher. But of course, if Montoya needs to make a second stop, then that will drop him back down behind his teammate once again.
And Barrichello has just given a personal best in that first sector. He knows on this lap, and I suspect that Barrichello will also be coming in on this lap, because that was the pattern that we saw in the first round of stops. He's got to push so hard in this sector, second sector, then expect to see Barrichello, but we're waiting to see in the pits. There's no sign of Ferrari laying up. The only people we can see in the pit lane right now that are prepared would be Jaguar. That's for Eddie Irvine. So no sign of Ferrari. Oh, there they are. In fact, they have. So Barrichello coming in, 7.4 seconds, and this is going to be a very, very tight pit stop, because Ralf Schumacher has been in and out, is back on the track. And for Barrichello, it is second place and 6 points, or third place and 4 points.
Yep, here he comes then, back into the pits once again for Rubens Barrichello, make his second stop of the day, and the Brazilian has been driving superbly in this second stint. Once he got past Ralph at the first stop, things have been going extremely well for him. Here comes our race leader then across the line. The pit stop still being timed. It's quite a long stop here, John. They must have had a problem with that left rear, because it took 13.9 seconds.
Yes, and the problem is, where is Ralf Schumacher? We're looking to see where Ralph is. He's nowhere in sight. He's just coming out of Ravazza. Waved yellow flags. Now, why are those waved yellow flags there?
I don't know. I think I did see some smoke from down there
Car
somewhere.
stopped. Well, I'm not sure. That was Irvine. He came out of the pits. We saw De La Rosa stop as he came out of the pits, and Irvine likewise has just stopped, blown up, or both, on the pit lane exit.
So Jaguar's good finishing record is all over, and Eddie Irvine steps out of his car. That's De La Rosa and Irvine both out of the San Marino Grand Prix. Watching Juan Pablo Montoya now in third position, remember, the two Ferraris up front. Michael Schumacher has retaken the lead, of course, after Barrichello made his stop. Barrichello in second place, and Montoya in third place. Ralf Schumacher then in fourth. Then it's David Coulthard in fifth. Jenson Button is in sixth place. Jacques Villeneuve in seventh. Let's take a look at what happened with Rubens' car here.
Yeah, we can't tell whether it was the wheel nut. Something went wrong in that left rear. So panic in the Ferrari, lost 4 seconds. Fortunately, didn't lose in position to Ralph. Actually, it was Juan Pablo Montoya is in third place right now. Ralph running in fourth.
So, Michael Schumacher, he's made his 2 stops, and he's all set here for a dominant victory this afternoon. Williams are getting ready to receive Juan Pablo Montoya, so certainly looks as though he's been struggling this afternoon for pace. He will drop behind his teammate. He should manage to get back out in front of David Coulthard. And let's just watch and listen as Montoya makes his stop. There goes Ralf Schumacher. It looks clean. Fuel goes aboard.
Yeah, good stop. Good job by the Williams team. 7.4 seconds, as quick as we've seen pretty much all day.
Sounded like he was asking whether he could keep the same tyres, but he was told that the wear was too much on that set of tyres and they had to change them. He was looking for perhaps a slightly quicker stop, but in fact often they get the wheels changed before they finish putting the fuel in anyway.
And I suppose also, it depends on the level of wear on the tyres. There's a point at which you can go, and then beyond that point you will be considered to be illegal, and the team very aware of that, as are Michelin. Nobody wants to go beyond that point and be the first person to suffer, and that's a disappointment there.
Yeah, Olivier Panis out of the race as well.
See that one.
We haven't seen his car stopped by the side of the road, but sadly the Frenchman, well, he hasn't had much luck with BAR Honda so far this year. It has been really a story of disappointment at every race. His teammate Jacques Villeneuve in the pits. Let's hope that this goes a little more cleanly. He gets away well, but Panis failed to finish any of the races so far. He was involved in the pile-up at Melbourne in the first race, had a clutch problem which put him out in the second race, and a gearbox problem that put him out in Brazil.
So David Coulthard in the remaining McLaren Mercedes-Benz, presently running in 5th place, some 38 seconds behind Montoya. Now that'll change again because Montoya's just gone back out. As we see yet again, the pace of the Ferraris are just blast past Renault.
The other question mark at the moment for me, and I think it should be fairly straightforward, is about this next stop, because Coulthard will be coming in from what is 5th place, but Jenson Button is only 15 seconds behind him. So that means that Coulthard is going to lose 5th place, and in fact we'll have to see whether Villeneuve, I don't think Villeneuve will be anywhere near him. It means that Coulthard will therefore drop down to 6th position.
Right now Button running in the middle, 126 is Coulthard, the 125s. Coulthard clearly being told to push, because this pit stop will make the difference. 6.8 seconds, the quickest all day. So can Coulthard get down the pit lane? Can he get onto the track before we see Jenson Button in his Renault? Look, well, there's no sign of the...
No, he just went through. Button just went through, so that means that he stays ahead of Coulthard as crossing a line. There's Michael Schumacher in danger of lapping those 2 cars.
Coulthard exits, and there you see the Renault flashing through the Villeneuve chicane as David Coulthard now in 6th place and just 1 point.
Yeah, it is disappointing, and the more disappointing from McLaren Mercedes' point of view, John, is the fact that they are likely to be lapped by race leader Michael Schumacher. I mean, what a story that is. Look at what McLaren Mercedes have done in recent years. They're the ones that have taken the challenge to Michael Schumacher, and this time they're in danger of having their only remaining car in the race lapped by Michael Schumacher.
And also I think I would like to see the press in Germany tomorrow, and they get stuck into Mercedes-Benz, because clearly the pace is not there. In the case of Raikkonen, the reliability is not there. And on top of which, you got the 2 BMW engine Williams running in 3rd and 4th place. But even today, their pace has not been sufficient to be able to challenge that of Ferrari.
Felipe Massa moving out of the way there of Ralf Schumacher. Massa still running in 9th, so both Saubers are still running, and with a fairly high attrition rate recently, we've seen them move up the order again. Massa back up into 9th, as I say. Heidfeld is in 10th position. Our other 2 runners still in this race are Enrique Benoldi in 11th, and Mark Webber. That Minardi still going. It's been reliable throughout the season. Might not be the fastest car out there, but Webber is putting in lap after lap, and he's currently in 12th.
And Mark lapping in the middle, 1 minute 28, and you contrast that to what's going on at the sharp end of the field. It was in the 24s, now back into the 25s, so about 3 seconds per lap difference between the Minardi with Mark Webber and the Ferraris of Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello.
Comparing laps, Michael and Ralph over the last couple of laps, and you can see that Ralf Schumacher's been setting some fairly rapid laps himself, 25.8 just on that last lap. But Michael, when he does get into clear air, he's back down into the 124, so I don't think this is anything to worry about. I think that Michael, although just lapping a little slow, I think he's got himself a bit caught in traffic, and that's what...
And really now under no pressure whatsoever. The only danger to him would be, of course, coming through the lap traffic, but we have quite a smallish field, only 12 cars of the 21 that started now running, and they're equidistant spread around the circuit. Michael Schumacher, those slow-mo, again, just watch his hands. It's so gentle the way he does everything. Just everything is so easy, there's so much time. Just sits there, the head, never moves, doesn't bob around. Absolutely perfection.
When a driver's driving at that level of ability, John, and that level of confidence, we've got the super slow-mo on our camera, but it's almost like that for him in the cockpit, isn't it? Everything is slowed down when you have that much confidence.
Well, when you've got a rhythm, as he's got, everything is just so easy. Everything happens. There's plenty of time for it to happen. You've got lots of time to think forward. Nothing is done in panic. Nothing is done as a sort of, It's just a rhythm. It's the best rhythm in the world.
Well, Michael Schumacher looking to hold on to that gap that he has currently over teammate Rubens Barrichello. 14 seconds it has remained around there. Ralf Schumacher now in third place, with Montoya having made that second stop. And Montoya really is not going to be able to get onto the podium unless something goes wrong to one of those three cars up ahead, the two Ferraris and the one Williams of his teammate. Jenson Button running in fifth place, but he's a long way himself behind Montoya. Coulthard about 3.5 seconds behind Button, so that could still be a battle to watch, the one between Coulthard and Button.
And we just see that battle as they come out of the Variante Alta, and there Enrique Benoldi into the gravel, and Benoldi has gone off down at the Ravazza. That's this exit of the middle of the second part of Ravazza. We don't know why, just maybe getting tired, driver error, or hopefully not a mechanical problem. But Arrows again a disappointment. Frentzen went out early in the race. Now Benoldi beached in the gravel. Once again a yellow flag around the entry, middle and exit of the Ravazza corners.
So we're down to almost half the field now with the retirement of Enrique Benoldi. That puts Mark Webber up one into 11th position. We do tend to see a fairly high attrition rate at this San Marino Grand Prix, with a lot of full throttle running. Sometimes the engines take quite a lot of strain, although it seems to have been a variety of reasons that we've seen cars go out here today. Tom Walkinshaw walks away, both cars out of the race, and it looks like a mechanical, John.
Yeah, he just turns it away. Well, something broke, I think, the left front suspension. You can see that all three wheels are turning except the left front. Suddenly that locked. Something, I think, broke in that left front suspension, and he just suddenly turned the car sharp right off the track, and whatever that problem was, it I believe was mechanical, and I believe in the left front suspension of the car. Benoldi very quick-witted to take the car away to safety into the gravel, knowing that he can get the car removed behind the barriers, as this battle for fifth place between Jenson Button and David Coulthard continues. And yet again Michael Schumacher slowly creeps up towards the tail of the McLaren.
One point I think we ought to mention, which perhaps we haven't really covered recently, is the fact that Jacques Villeneuve now running in 7th place in the BAR Honda and is ahead of Jarno Trulli. Now, I don't know what's happened with Trulli, but he was right up in that group at the beginning. He was battling with Jenson Button. Now he finds himself separated from Button by not only David Coulthard, but by Jacques Villeneuve as well. And Villeneuve only needs one person to have a problem to get the BAR Honda into the points, and none of the Honda-powered cars have scored yet this year.
Everybody knows how fast Jarno Trulli is, but there's always been, to some degree, a question mark, and there's part of the exhaust system. That looks like a Ferrari part of an exhaust system to me, lying somewhere on the track. That's the end of the tailpipe. I don't know whether I'm right in saying Ferrari. It just happens to be in front of one of the Ferrari's principal sponsors, but a piece of that titanium exhaust system lying on a part of the racetrack, and that, just looking to see where it's coming from. I think it's up at the Piratella. I'm not sure. I think it is coming up to the Piratella.
Well, hopefully it's just offline, and with a bit of luck, everybody will manage to miss it. Bit hard if you're running side by side with somebody, but not usually trying to overtake into that part of the track.
No, but it's just literally very close to the line. The line is on the left of screen. It is a yellow flag area. I mean, you're not going to send out anybody to clear that up. It's too dangerous to put somebody out in the racetrack, so that yellow flag station will remain there. And once the entire field has been through, they will be aware that there is something on the track. And of course, they are meant to marginally slow down, but certainly they should stay well to the right of the track and not attempt any overtaking manoeuvre, which of course would be totally illegal under a yellow flag station anyway.
Now, how must this feel for David Coulthard? He's been given a blue flag to let race leader Michael Schumacher just go through. Well, David's had plenty of battles with Michael Schumacher over the last few years, but he slowed right down there.
Well, I think it's David Coulthard making a point, doing it right in front of the hierarchy of his team. So he pulls over to the right of track and does the correct thing, of course, that's what David would always do, and lets Michael go through. But I think there was a message there to the team and to Mercedes-Benz and saying, hold on a second, guys, look, you know, I hoped I had a chance to have it. You know, I'm now, if you like, the de facto team leader, though even that might be under dispute, and you're not delivering for me. I'm doing my bit, but where's your bit?
Well, you have to say it's a huge disappointment for him, for the team. Finished second here last year to Ralf Schumacher after taking the pole position. Didn't quite match the pace of Williams BMW last season, but at least he was in the battle this time. They're not in the battle at all. He's running down in 6th place. He is some 19 seconds ahead of Jacques Villeneuve. He's not really under any threat, but bitterly disappointing for them.
And what really must hurt more than anything else, it's one thing being third of the top three, but you've got Renault here and Jenson Button on merit, on the same tyres, running ahead of you. Now, we saw a glimpse of that in Brazil, where Renaults were very strong, particularly because of their great starts, but they were able to run at a pace. Once the pit stops occurred, then McLaren did have the advantage in Brazil, but in Imola, that advantage appears to be negated.
It does indeed, and Renault are very much going to be a factor in this year's Constructors' Championship. They're on 6 points at the moment, only 2 points behind McLaren. Well, they're going to gain a point by the looks of things on McLaren. It's going to keep that battle very close. That's Enrique Bernaldi walking back to the pits, the end of the Arrows day once more, I'm afraid, and it's been a disappointing start to their season. They're looking forward to getting their first real testing underway over the next week or two.
Well, we haven't seen an awful lot of this man. Normally he's at the front where all the action is, certainly all the excitement is. And Juan Pablo Montoya in 4th place, virtually 20 seconds now, 19.6 seconds behind his teammate, some 36.4 seconds ahead of Jenson Button. So really running in a bit of a no man's land situation, no real momentum, no motivation to push any harder than he's doing. He just wants to bring his car home. He's going to pick up 3 points for his 4th place, and that will just continue to add to his points total. And Pablo Montoya will end up with 17 points, but Michael Schumacher, if he continues, is going to be on double that, on 34.
Yeah, this is not what Montoya needed at all, and it has been a disappointing outing, there's no doubt. I wonder what the story will be afterwards from the Williams team and from Montoya himself. Did they go wrong on setup? Because Ralf has certainly been able to run a bit more competitively than Montoya throughout this race. Ralph's done a good job with the equipment he's had. He is some 11 seconds still behind Rubens Barrichello.
This is a battle for position. We got Felipe Massa just half a second behind Jarno Trulli. This is the battle for 8th place. I think the heart's gone out of Trulli, but there's tons of heart here in the young Brazilian, and just seems to be running down the Renault by the corner, and we've seen how he is aggressive when he gets close to a car ahead of him. Again, tons of curb going into the Ravazza. Lets the car run out to the edge again. Tons of curb on the exit. And will the Sauber be able to put pressure and overtake the Renault and take away that 8th place?
Strange how we've seen with both Renault and Williams, one of the drivers going well and one doing poorly. Trulli's done relatively poorly relative to Button, that is, and Montoya's done poorly compared to Ralf Schumacher. Just makes you wonder quite what's gone on there, whether there a change or a choice of strategies of the tyres, perhaps something to do with the Michelin, which tyres they're using. I have no idea. It just seems a little odd that Trulli is now struggling to hold off Felipe Massa, and he must have some sort of problem with that car.
And Felipe Massa is going to be getting very impatient, and he hasn't shown much signs of having too much patience. I mean, it's great to see somebody with so much heart and passion, so young, forcing a more experienced and a highly rated driver like Jarno Trulli all the way, hounding him down. Okay, there are no points for 8th place, but you know, you've got to be, if you're a racer, you're a racer.
Indeed, that's right. Massa is certainly a racer. You just see the carbon discs glowing a little bit on the run down to Aqua Minerale there, and Trulli is going to have to defend fairly vigorously. Only 4 laps to go in this race, as Michael Schumacher still maintaining almost 15 seconds advantage over his teammate Rubens Barrichello.
And just look at he just throws the car, he aims at the curb, basically he aims from where he's sitting, which is in the middle of the car, and just bangs into that curb, does it all the way through the Variante up at the top of the circuit, Variante Alta. Now they're down, exiting through the Ravazza, And coming down to that final tight chicane. Nowhere to pass here, but he's going to run close. He's going to try and pick up a bit of speed, but again, not close enough.
It is so difficult to get past on this current configuration of circuit, John. Next year we've heard that they are going to be changing things and straightening out a couple of areas, spending around £5 million to do that. So let's hope that that will give maybe just one or two opportunities where you can get the slipstream and draw alongside, because at the moment they're all pretty high-speed entries to these chicanes, and it just breaks up the flow of the racetrack.
Again, it's just this problem, these Formula One cars today, with the horsepower they have. They just simply accelerate between corners. They never reach what I would call terminal speed and then sort of stall out. And it's just about acceleration and brake and acceleration and brake. And unless you get a massive bite off a corner and can launch yourself forward, you've got to have a lot of time in hand today to be able to get past some of the inner racing situation.
But at the moment, Jarno Trulli holding on to 8th place, is defending quite well from Felipe Massa, not having to block or anything, just maintaining his line and staying in front. Remember, it's Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello looking at a Ferrari 1-2 here today. And Ralf Schumacher's been running reasonably well in this latter stint, I have to say. Ralph still some 9.5 seconds behind Rubens Barrichello. We did hear, oh, and look, Massa's got through. Massa's got past Trulli.
Down into Ravazza. Massa forced the situation. Maybe Trulli made an error, but Massa was in place.
So surely there must be some sort of problem. Couldn't quite catch the radio there what they were talking about.
Look, as they come down, and very, very courageous. Well, he sort of half stuck his nose in, and Trulli wasn't prepared to make an issue of it, because he realised with the Sauber inside him, if he shut the door, there would be contact, and he was on the outside of the corner, would come worse off. He's going to finish 9th now, not finish 8th, and I think as far as Jarno Trulli is concerned, frankly, that doesn't make any difference at all. Does to the team, because again it relates to their income stream over the period of the year, but nonetheless you're fighting from Felipe Massa, fighting for 8th place, took a bit of a punt and bullied Trulli into letting him through.
Here he is, Michael Schumacher then, carrying on round. He's lapped David Coulthard, as we know. Coulthard still the next car on the road behind him, and this large gap that Michael Schumacher has back to his teammate Rubens Barrichello of 15 seconds.
But both Ferraris have been ordered by Ross Brawn on the pit lane to take it easy. You're into the final 2-3 laps of this race. They've dropped all the way down. Well, they were dropped. Michael and Rubens had dropped down to 1 minute 27s. Michael suddenly popped up at 1:25 and Rubens at 1:28. So maybe one is paying attention to the pit wall and the other is saying, really? Well, I'm in a rhythm. Don't let me break that rhythm or I might do something silly.
Yeah, interesting to see that 1:28 from Barrichello. I wonder whether he just found a little bit of traffic to pass, although he should have been relatively clear on that last lap, I think. So let's hope there aren't any problems for the Brazilian. And Ralf Schumacher only 6.7 seconds behind. So Ralf was able to catch up. Here is Ralf, able to close a little bit up on Rubens Barrichello. He has got the car of Jacques Villeneuve to try and get past, though.
And Villeneuve slows down, lets Ralf Schumacher take the position all the way up. And again, I just wonder where that piece of metal has been removed. A bit of exhaust pipe appears to have gone. So Ralf really doesn't lose anything. Rubens Barrichello probably did lose a bit more. That was 6.7 seconds as they went past the pits. But time has run out for Ralf, as Ferraris are just cruising now to what we anticipate to be a surprisingly delightful and whatever you want to call it 1-2.
That's right. Looking from the onboard camera back and just coming back to that issue of tyres, we did hear this morning that it was quite possible that Ralf and Schumacher and Montoya were on different tyres at the start of this race, different compound of Michelin. Hopefully we might find out afterwards to see whether that was part of the reason for the disparity in performance, and wonder if that was the situation at all with Renault. But Ferrari are getting ready to make celebrations here, because we're on to the final lap. Michael Schumacher leads around this last lap, and already the crowd are beginning to cheer their hero home as Michael looking to take another victory for Ferrari. This will become another win to add to the victories in Melbourne and Brazil. Well, it's been an absolutely storming start to the season.
And this will be victory number 56, assuming Michael makes it round and there's no last-minute hitches. We don't anticipate. Ralf Schumacher, actually, in the last lap, now setting fastest first sector time in his vain charge to run down. It's down to 4.4 seconds, the distance between Ralf Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello. And there we see as they charge down. This is Michael Schumacher, of course, coming into the Ravazza. But nonetheless, Ralf Schumacher has not given up, but he has left it too late.
So Michael Schumacher has driven an absolutely flawless race here at Imola. Perfect throughout. He comes down to the final chicane, eases it through. So simple for Michael Schumacher. He wins at Imola. It's his 4th win at this racetrack, and nobody has ever taken 4 wins at Imola before. More record-breaking performances from the 4 times world champion. And once again, he goes even further ahead in the Drivers' Championship. Teammate Rubens Barrichello finishes in 2nd place. A stunning 1-2 for the Ferrari 2002 car. Look how close Ralf was there. Right across the line. Ralf was only 1.8 seconds behind him. He was really pushing at the end. I don't know whether Rubens had a problem, but Ralf finishes in 3rd place, and we're still waiting for Juan Pablo Montoya to cross the line as Michael Schumacher laps up the applause from the fans around the track. And here is Montoya coming through.
Right on the limit. Anyway, Ralf Schumacher, that last lap, his fastest lap of the race, on the last lap of the race. And look at that, Jenson Button, he was very, very close as they came across the line. So look at that, pleasure from everybody here in Imola.
Yeah, well, you couldn't get a more popular victory here at Imola, could you, than having a Ferrari 1-2. Michael looking across to Rubens, and he knows that they've done the job for the team here today. I have to say that with Rubens due to renegotiate his contract at Ferrari, he couldn't have done a much better job than he's done this weekend. We could just hear Ross Brawn there.
Well, they're trying to give something back to the Tifosi. They've done that. Last year, of course, disappointment when Michael retired and Rubens wasn't able to take up the challenge. He ended up finishing in 3rd place. And now Michael's saying, well, we've given something back to the Tifosi and you can't give it back in bigger measure than coming 1-2.
Look at the little bits of rubber all around the offline there. That's a result of having softer compound tyres. In Formula One, the tyre battle that goes on between the 2 companies, they're all driving around offline, notice, to pick up a lot of that rubber on their tyres as well. Ralf Schumacher drove superbly well here today as well. Outpaced by Ferrari, there wasn't a lot that the Williams BMW could do. He closed right to within a second or 2 of Barrichello at the end, but it wasn't enough. Ferrari and Bridgestone having the edge here today, and Michael Schumacher superb as ever, carrying on his record-breaking run. Montoya finishing in 4th place. Jenson Button, a good drive from Jenson Button to take 5th place ahead of David Coulthard in 6th. And Jacques Villeneuve, after a hard-fought weekend, happier with the car. Unlucky in a way, I suppose, not to get in the points, but it will still boost BAR Honda to have had that finish.
Yes, indeed, a strong performance from Villeneuve. I think Jacques is now showing signs of being revitalised and rejuvenated, and drove a very, very strong race, a hard race. He knew he was never going to get into the points on merit, but nevertheless he didn't give up and he pushed all the way, and that 7th place will give heart to the team, and a team now being restructured, and one that maybe in the course of the remaining part of this season will start to make inroads and progress.
Michael Schumacher, 34 points he now has in that Drivers' Championship, and he's running away in this early stage of the season. It still is the very early stage, but what a brilliant start it's been. Ferrari's choice to use the 2001 car initially, well, that worked perfectly. Then Michael pushed to have the 2002 car ready for Brazil. That worked perfectly, and it's all worked absolutely according to plan here this weekend.
But Ben, what's amazing is that Ferrari continually produce cars that by and large are reliable, not only reliable but win races. And you know, there's something that goes on down in Maranello which is magic, and that is they've got the speed, they've got the reliability. How many other teams can say the same? I mean, right now Williams, this was a Williams Grand Prix. They are going to be very, very disappointed to have not won this Grand Prix. Think about what McLaren are going to be thinking. Is it going to be a crisis meeting, or is there a problem we don't know about David Coulthard?
Ferrari take the lead in the Constructors' Championship now by a narrow 3 points over Williams BMW, who did have the lead before we came in. And look, everyone else has got so little in comparison. It really is a great shame. McLaren only on 9 points, just the 1 point scored today, and Renault on 8 points, so they are close to within 1 point of McLaren Mercedes. Michael Schumacher out of the car, delighted as ever, always pleased. And there's Rory Byrne, an occasional visitor only to the Grand Prix, the man who designed this car, congratulating his #1 driver.
And there, well, affection from Brazilian Rubens Barrichello, and now Rubens and Michael being asked to come in. They'll be weighed with their helmets, and then they'll go up onto the podium. And Jean Todt, once again, the mastermind behind this Ferrari resurgence, has taken a long time. And the major key component was when Michael Schumacher joined the team in '96, but it didn't happen until 2000. Before that, World Championship was inevitable. It was going to come to Ferrari, but it took a long time.
It did, but it's worked so well ever since then, hasn't it? And Michael Schumacher, 3 wins. He's had 4 Ferrari himself here now, to make it 4 in total, including the victory he had for Benetton some years ago. Williams still have the most wins of the manufacturers around this track, but still for Ferrari, bringing in their 5th victory at Imola, following on from Didier Pironi back in 1982, Patrick Tambay in '83, and Michael himself in 1999, 2000, and now 2002. There are the results then. Schumacher ahead of Barrichello, with Ralf Schumacher in a close third at the end. Montoya seemed to struggle a bit today. We'll find out later whether that was down to tyres or other problems. Button in a good 5th place. Strong race that was from Jenson Button, and a lot of people in pit lane will have admired that performance because he did the quick laps when he needed to. But for McLaren Mercedes, disappointment really. They lost Kimi Raikkonen, and David Coulthard ended up being lapped in 6th.
Well, we're looking at a wonderful race for Ferrari, but again, just listening off to Ross Brawn and being asked how easy was it for you, and they said, well, obviously that little problem in the pit lane for Rubens Barrichello, but also apparently they made a request to Michael to make a change on that steering wheel. Remember, we saw the Ferrari steering wheel at the start of the race, prior to the race getting underway. Well, one of the inputs that he was required to make didn't respond, and they were actually sitting on eggs, they said, on the pit wall for most of that race. They weren't sure whether the car and the reliability was going to be there, but clearly we've seen a 1-2 from Ferrari, and reliability problems and little glitches which occur in a race, still not enough to dethrone the world champion from another victory, 56, and from Rubens joining him on the podium to make it a Ferrari 1-2.
Yes, win number 147 for Ferrari. And remember, Michael becoming the most experienced Ferrari driver with this Grand Prix. Well, he couldn't have done it in better style, could he? Taking over from Gerhard Berger as the driver to have contested more Grand Prix than anyone else for the famous Italian team. And he's done it with a win here at Imola. And just talking about that reliability, the man there, Jean Todt, responsible for the programme. That new car, they did thousands of miles of testing with it, of course, during the winter, but that stunning reliability once again, and some of the teams up and down the pit lane must be so envious of that finishing record. Up onto the top step then, the familiar jump of victory for Michael Schumacher, and time for the national anthems to play. The German and Italian national anthems, familiar parts of the celebration ceremonies at a Grand Prix nowadays. And the Schumachers seem to be taking the San Marino Grand Prix by storm. 4 wins in the last 4 years between the two brothers. 3 of those, of course, for Michael, but Ralph winning here last year. So the trophies have Schumacher all over them. But what a good news it is that Rubens has finally scored his first points of the season.
Yeah, I mean, 3 tough races. Really struggled. He thought he might have had a chance in Brazil with a different strategy. Certainly he flew in Brazil, and still no points until he came to Imola. Now 6 points for second place, and he'll not be dissatisfied with that, and hope maybe at some point in the season he might find himself in that central podium position where Michael is right now to get those glorious 10 points.
Yes, that would be great to see. It's time for the champagne shower now, as Michael Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello go to work.
And they're just deluging poor Rory Byrne. He's not a champagne fan, and when that gets in your eyes, it is not much fun. Using the trophy to shield his face. Michael, familiar with the champagne bottle, knows how to be most effective with it. And there the teams receive the remains of the mum. Champagne is passed down to the teams as tradition. Certainly by Michael and the Ferrari team. Watch it, boys. Here she comes.
Oh, dear.
Well held, that man.
Brave camera, too. Right underneath it as that fell. And they managed to save them both without letting them crash to earth.
And Ross Brawn with Jean, his wife, standing, enjoying yet another moment with the team. Ross, of course, again with Michael and Rory Byrne and Jean Todt and Rubens Barrichello. So much responsible for the success. I mean, this does not just happen by luck. This is hard work, dedication, commitment. Good funding does help as well, but without all the other elements, the funding is of no use whatsoever.
Well, the flag says for 2002 world champion for Michael Schumacher and Ferrari, and you have to say, based on the performance we've seen here today, it's going to be very, very difficult to beat him throughout the course of the year. Williams BMW still very much the closest challenger, and Ralf Schumacher put in a great performance today, second place in that title battle. But Williams need a bit of luck to go their way, and they know that the next track at Barcelona is more likely to suit the Ferrari, the aerodynamics, the downforce, the way it responds to those fast sweeping corners. Not always the best kind of track for Williams, but who knows? It's all part of the tyre battle as well, and Michelin working flat out to try and make something a little better than Bridgestone.
And there the crowd just streaming all the way up from the Tamburello corner. But we mentioned about Michelin, the one strength that they have, and even more so than Bridgestone, is the ability to respond literally within 24 hours. If they've got a tyre development which they believe really, really works and is going to give them an advantage, they're in a position to put that into production and send out sets of tyres. It is just amazing what the French company is capable of doing.
Just look at the enthusiasm. It's fantastic, isn't it? That's what it's all about. That's why this man gets paid millions and millions, because of his abilities and because of the support of people like that. Great response from the team and from Michael himself. It's another victory to Michael Schumacher and to Ferrari. And as the drivers now make their way into the press conference, let's go over and hear from them.
And it's welcome to the top 3 finishing drivers of the 2002 San Marino Grand Prix. It's Michael Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher. Michael, many congratulations. On the day when you became the driver who's made the most ever starts for Ferrari, you put in a performance that any of those previous greats have been proud of. You must be delighted for yourself, the team and the fans.
Yeah, indeed, there's obviously many reasons we can be proud and happy about. We have sort of failed last year after a lot of hopes we both had, Rubens and myself. We sort of couldn't deliver as much as we were expecting, and this year we gave back something, I believe, to our Tifosi. It's the first home Grand Prix for us this year. It's, as you said, a special Grand Prix for me here today. Concerns the history of Ferrari, and therefore I'm more than proud it has gone their way.
We saw the Constructors' Cup being awarded to Rory Byrne. We don't see him very much. Put a few words about Rory and his great new car.
I mean, he's a unique person, no doubt, and I've rarely seen a gentleman like him being motivated in any circumstances, being such a great person. And we have now worked, I don't know for how many years, but most of my Formula 1 career I've been working together somehow with him, and I have to say that I really enjoyed that on the human side and obviously on the technical side. And what he has been delivering to Ferrari, I think is such a consistent good job that we can be more than proud to have a person like him in our team. Despite all the other persons which obviously support him, because it's not all due to him, but he obviously is the main person who concerns design, and it's great to have such a team, such a person being in our team.
Hey Michael, Ribbon's great second place, but you just must be so relieved to finally finish a race.
Well, that's true. I mean, it's been 3 races without any points, so I was looking forward to finish a race, and it's like Michael said, it's been a really wonderful time, because to finish first and second in front of our tifosi here, it seems it's really great. So I'm proud to have a car like that. It's been a weekend where it's one of my best weekends in terms of car setup and car balance, because it's been really a wonderful car.
Now, there seemed to be a slight problem in your second pit stop, and you seemed to go a bit slower towards the end. Were there problems?
Well, I don't know what the problem was. I think I had a small problem on the left rear tire. But after the second stop, after 5 laps, they told me to take care of the engine, so I just slowed down a little.
Rubens, thank you. Ralph, third today, was that really the best you had in the package today?
Well, that was the best we could do. I think we had a reasonably good strategy, very similar to Ferraris. I managed to stay in front of Rubens the first stint, but then he pitted a lap later, so that's why he got me. I think for our circumstance, our car was very good today. The team did a great job. I mean, we did the best with what we've had today. But certainly it looks like it is not good enough, so we have to improve if we want to win races in the next few or in the future. So that's pretty definite after today.
On the plus side, you made a very good start, and then going into the first corner, you had quite a big lock-up. Was that quite close to being a problem?
Not really, but it's always when the brakes are not really warm that you tend to lock the front wheels from time to time. It looks worse than it is.
Thanks, Ralph. Michael, big party tonight?
We sort of have certainly a celebration, but obviously being so early in the season, our mind is now already at the next Grand Prix. We start testing from Tuesday on, so preparation goes on. It's a bit of a shame that we don't have sort of more time to enjoy such a success, but for sure we will open a bottle of champagne and have a glass all together.
Gentlemen, thank you. Now, word from each in your own languages, please, starting with Michael.
Well,
Perry, you were saying while that was going on that you were asking Damon when they might be tested, and then Damon said Tuesday, spot on, and of stressing that. He's obviously a huge fan.
I think it's nice to acknowledge Rory so publicly. He doesn't turn up to many of the races, but the fact that he has at this one and everybody's really around him and kind of just wants to celebrate his enormous contribution to the team. He's a nice guy, Rory. He's a very, very smart man indeed, and obviously a primary asset to this team. The success starts at in the drawing room, doesn't it?
He's not someone who seeks publicity, that's for sure. At one point he was about to throw in the towel and say, he wanted to go off and see the planet before it was all consumed by sort of concrete or something. But so he's a quiet man but a very, very important man to Michael, obviously.
We could now have a word now with Patrick Head of Williams. Patrick, we were hoping, some of us here are Montoya fans, that he might only be stopping the once in that race, but he had to come in a second time. Was that absolutely necessary? I don't know if you can hear me, Patrick. We were wondering whether Montoya might have been allowed to just make it a one-stop. We'll try and find out a little later on. In the meantime, let's go back to Montoya's teammate. And in the meantime, go back again to Patrick Head. Patrick, can you hear us? I'm going to leave that for a while. I don't care what they say. You were talking about, I was talking about Ralf Schumacher, at least I was thinking it to myself. He looked down there. I know he was third as opposed to second, but I mean, 2 weeks ago, the pair of them were happy and chummy, and both seemed as happy as one another.
I think that's fairly normal, Ralph. He's actually quite a shy guy. He doesn't like to get to be drawn on too many things publicly. So it's a normal reaction for him. He's right in saying that they've got more work to do. I mean, the mindset. Michael said it. You know, they're already thinking about the next race. They jump out the car. Okay, now that's that one done. We want the next one.
All right, we're going to try Patrick Head again. Patrick, sorry to muck you around. We were just thinking, was there any chance that Montoya could have made that a one-stopper?
We didn't put enough fuel in to do a one-stop in, so. The strategy was fairly clear because you could see it from the fact that everybody did pretty much the same strategy, and so everybody's simulation programs must be fairly similar.
Hi Patrick, it's Perry McCarthy. To begin with, Patrick, Juan's times were quite a bit slower than those of his teammates.
Yeah, he said he had a bit of understeer. Hi there, Perry, by the way. He said he had understeer coming to the grid, and we thought that it was just in the period of the tyre's life, so we didn't compensate for it because we thought it would be self-correcting, but it didn't correct itself.
I've got a technical question for you.
Hi, Dan.
I hope you.
Oh goodness me, that's challenging.
I'm sure you better help us. But we were just wondering whether the track temperature was a disadvantage to the Michelin runners. Did you feel that's true or not?
Well, I think we've been given a bit of a drubbing today, and so maybe we can have some little moments where we'll clutch at some reasons outside the car at what it might be, but ultimately we were 0.7, 0.8 of a second a lap too slow today, and that probably may represent the difference between last year's Ferrari and this year's Ferrari.
Well, thanks for talking to us, Patrick. We've got to move on, but thanks again. We'll see you next race.
Thanks,
hopefully.
Patrick.
Okay.
So that was honest. You don't often get football managers saying we've got a bit of a drubbing today.
Well, Patrick is well known for being outspoken and honest, and there's no sense in hiding it. You know, he could have come up with some excuse that, oh yeah, well we've, could have blamed Michelin or something like that, but he didn't. The fact is, they will go away and be honest with themselves and say, okay, we're 0.7 of a second slower than the new Ferrari. My God, what are we going to do about it?
It was a great day, a red letter day for Ferrari. Let's remind ourselves of the highlights of the San Marino Grand Prix. And talk about a battle.
Express their enjoyment, their pleasure of what they've seen. A Grand Prix that really was all about domination from one team, really from one driver. And I think for most people in the pit lane and certainly in the press room and TV compounds, they'll be very pleased that Rubens Barrichello has finally got off the 0 points he had and has found 6 points for his second place.
Yes, that's great news for Rubens, and pleased about that, and that puts him straight into 5th place in the championship, just behind Jenson Button. But Button is still best of the rest after the Ferrari and Williams BMW drivers, still ahead in fact of the second Ferrari driver. So, you know, Jenson's scoring consistently. There's some British fans, and I bet they were cheering Jenson on throughout the course of this afternoon. Did a great job, I thought, really put in the laps when he needed to. He's showing such great maturity now, and a high level of skill, and a definite smile on the face of Jenson Button once again here today after a well-driven race. Just a quick look at the fastest laps there. Rubens Barrichello ended up with the fastest lap in the end. A new lap record, of course, 1:24.1 ahead of Michael Schumacher, but they did both back off in the last stages. Montoya about 0.3 of a second off on his best to Ralf Schumacher, and perhaps that understeer that Patrick Head was telling us about a moment ago was what really hurt them. Further on down the fastest lap classification, Button was faster over the lap than Coulthard, as you can see. Villeneuve wasn't far behind. And that's an excellent performance from BAR Honda as we look for them to continue their improvement.
And also Jenson Button, as we dive into the Sauber team, looking at Felipe Massa, certainly provided us with entertainment. And Jenson, he's very pleased indeed with his performance. He feels that actually it was a better performance than that in Malaysia, where he could have had his first podium position. In fact, lost it on the last lap. But nevertheless, Jenson very happy indeed, and you're finding consistency. And he was particularly pleased to finish ahead of McLaren, and that's a finish that is on merit. There was no giveaways in that one. He felt maybe in Malaysia some of the positions were gained at other people's expenses, but this one he felt was earned on merit, and a happy young man.
Well, quite right too. He deserves to be happy. He deserved that result. Still the Colombian flags flying alongside the Ferrari flags, but Juan Pablo Montoya finds himself on 17 points in the championship now, a full 17 behind Michael Schumacher. So he needs plenty of good fortune in the upcoming races to see what he can do in terms of challenging Michael in the points battle. Cars all undercover now, of course, away from prying eyes, and the Ferraris with the Prancing Horse emblem on their car covers, and you won't want the Tifosi getting too close to those, otherwise there will not be very much left at the end of it.
And of course the cars will have to go through scrutineering to ensure that they are fully eligible, and if there's any problems on some of those cars, then that will be brought to the attention of the stewards, and hopefully I don't think there's a problem. Looked like it was a pretty clean race. There was no unnecessary contact, no drivers falling over each other or tripping over each other, as sometimes does happen, and I'm sure the top 6 will be well happy to have confirmation that their positions from being provisional will become confirmed.
Yes, hopefully no problems with scrutineering, as you say. And just looking on that list of fastest laps, Nick Heidfeld ended up with the 5th fastest lap. That was a pretty impressive performance. I do feel a bit for Heidfeld because he lost out with those extra pit stops, ended up finishing down in 10th position. They had a problem on one pit stop, and then that caused him to speed, I suppose, because he then picked up the penalty next time around.
But interesting, his fastest lap was actually on the 61st lap of the race. Ralf Schumacher's were on the last lap of the race, but the fact that Nick Heidfeld, quite often drivers will just say, I don't have any chance, I'll give up, and just go through the motions. The young German Nick Heidfeld decided, well, I'm going to push, and he did finish behind Jarno Trulli, but nevertheless very much a big disappointment considering his grid position, 7th on the grid, and he had hoped that he could maybe translate that into maybe picking up 1 or 2 points, and he'll increase his 2 points, current 2 points he has in the Drivers' Championship.
Only 3 teams yet to score in the Constructors' Championship, but they are the 2 Honda-powered teams, I'm afraid, the BAR Honda team and the Jordan Honda team, and the Arrows team. So those 3 teams all at the bottom of the Constructors' Championship battle. No points for any of them, and I don't think any of us would have predicted that there would have been no Honda-powered cars in the top 6 in the first 4 races of the season.
Well, you think in the first 3 races, those flyaway races, there's always a chance for points. They're always sort of, I call them punters races, anything can happen, It's when you get into Europe it becomes much, much tougher to score points, and for Jordan, BAR and Arrows now they're facing a task that is not just uphill, it's actually vertical.
Yeah, a tough task indeed for them. There they are, the Jordan boys, looking over some of the data that they've gathered through the course of the race, as well as packing up, stripping the cars down, ready to put them on board the transporters. Of course, at least now that we're back in Europe, the cars can be transported by their regular trucks that will tour around Europe throughout the course of the season. You might even see them on the road occasionally, heading down to the ferry port at Dover. These wonderful Formula One transporters, beautifully kitted out inside, and now that they're not flying them away to places like Brazil and Australia, where they basically run them out of crates, here now in Europe they've got their Pantechnicons to run the cars from. Makes it a little bit easier for the teams.
Well, David Brown in the Jordan pit, I don't know what he's got a reason to be smiling for. He can't be terribly happy. Once again the Jordan team failing with both cars, and the pressure now will be mounting on both those Honda teams. At least one can say BAR did a good job, Jacques Villeneuve, bringing that car home in a fighting 7th place. Still outside the points, but nevertheless the car did finish, and it was running relatively competitively within the group of cars around him.
Obrigado, Ayrton, and well, still thoughts, of course, always here at Imola, of Ayrton Senna and of Roland Ratzenberger, who died here in 1994, and well, that was a horrific weekend. I'm glad to say this weekend has seen some great competition, some good sport, and for the Tifosi, the ideal result for their cars. A 1-2 finish for Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello.
Well, we're going to see a few more sights like this. Of course, in Italy it's always more so, but nevertheless the Ferrari fans will be supporting their team around Europe, and wherever they're racing they will be there. Both Schumi fans, Rubens Barrichello, Montoya also getting in, and the rumours about Montoya being potentially a Ferrari driver in 2003 would seem now, after what we've witnessed, a little bit wide of the mark.
Yes, I think that wouldn't be terribly likely. We'll find out soon. Of course, there's so many rumours about who will join Michael or be with Michael next year, with Rubens' contract up for negotiation. I think Michael will push to have Rubens stay there. I think he's very happy to have Barrichello as a teammate, but it might be that Ferrari wants to do something different.
Well, there's the scene looking down towards start-finish line and back to the chicane.
Well, it's been an eventful weekend here at Imola. Thank you for joining us here on our Super Channel coverage. From Ben Edwards and John Watson, until Barcelona, goodbye for now.
Okay, a red letter day for Ferrari, and it's even sweeter. It takes them 3 points above Williams at the top of the Constructors' Championship. Now then, Tony Jardine, they're all celebrating there, aren't they? But, I mean, Michael nicked his car, didn't he? Nicked his teammate's motor.
Well, we were talking as they said that that's what he'd done, and that's what the number one does. He takes what is slightly better. And obviously, as we'd said, we're watching qualifying, Rubens wasn't sure about the setup of it, and that particular car went so well, and Michael decided to nick it.
Yeah, that's just psychological, isn't it? I mean, just that little edge over your teammate. Yeah, your car's going very well, you're getting a little bit too close to me, I'll take it for the next day.
If we look at the start, I mean, Michael Schumacher got away so well here, didn't he? And with that unbeatable Ferrari, the race was over very, very early, it would appear.
The start was clean, everybody got away nicely, but already the Ferrari's out in front. Schumacher, I have to say, was so impressive in those opening laps. I think a little bit unfortunate for guys like Alan McNeish there, had a bit of a stumble there with a drive failure by the looks of it. But again, we see a slight lock-up from Ralf Schumacher, and we've seen him dive into the turn one a little bit too hot on a number of occasions now, but he got away with it.
Yeah, that was McNish sadly going off, but also you saw from here, Juan Pablo Montoya had a good look down the inside of Barrichello. You see Barrichello went across to try and put the squeeze on Ralph there, and then when Pablo really breaks late and thinks about going inside Rubens Barrichello and trying to take third place, it was an exciting start.
A bit of rain on the camera lenses there. Would it have made any difference at all if it had rained, or would Schumacher have won even more easily?
I think they were ready for that. I think the tyre technology from Bridgestone would have been taking them ahead as well. I'm sure that they had every contingency catered for. But there's something else quite significant in this. This new car, there's still more development in the Ferrari 2002. Rory Byrne, who you saw up on the podium there, went to Luca de Montezemolo, the Ferrari president, and said, look, here's the designs of the new car. And Luca said, that's too revolutionary, you can't do that. Sorry, I'm not approving that. And they had to go back to him a week later and convince him. And that's how far ahead that car is. The others are going to have to make a big step to get up there with Ferrari.
Give us a driver's viewpoint on this incident between Eddie Irvine in the slow Jaguar and Rubens Barrichello in the flying Ferrari.
I mean, it's a situation what happens now and again. Eddie, you know, to give him his due, it's not easy to see somebody behind you. One car goes by, the second car, Rubens Barrichello, comes up behind. He obviously didn't see him, chops him off. A little bit disappointing for Rubens because he was on the back of Ralf Schumacher there in hot pursuit. A little bit of universal sign language coming up right now, I think. Yes. I think everybody knows worldwide what that means, and Eddie got the message, but very unfortunate.
Not a sign that we would encourage anybody to do on the roads of Britain, of course. And the Ferrari, the team, they seem to have it well set, and in fact they were relaxing and they were joking, weren't they? And there's, oh, this is all very easy, this, and but it doesn't pay in this sport, Tony, to take things too easily. This is Barrichello's.
It doesn't. We're deep in Ferrari territory, and we're deep into a Ferrari era now as well. And I think they can afford that brief moment of relaxation, because between pit stops, it is very, very tough work. These guys work very hard. Make no mistake, they're extremely well drilled, and they're the top of their game. Michael Schumacher and the team were practicing pit stops. Rubens was practicing pit stops. They were practicing starts in the testing leading up to this Grand Prix. And also, they tested here in February with Bridgestone. No one else did that, and they put a lot of work into the tyre technology. Bridgestone did not want to be beaten again like they were last year by Michelin.
OK, just pause there for a moment. Tonight we are joined live by Jenson Button down there. Jenson, you hear us OK? It's Jim Rosenthal in the ITV studio.
Loud and clear.
Hi, good stuff. Compare this season for us. Take a deep, deep breath and compare this season with what happened to you last season.
I don't think really there is any comparison to be made, but all I can say is, you know, that for me this has been the best, probably the best race in my Formula 1 career. I mean, we got fifth position not by people failing, by actually being quick enough. So, you know, it's fantastic to finish fifth here, especially in front of the two McLarens.
Just explain that to us a bit more. The best race of your Formula 1 career.
That's correct. I think it is.
Why?
Why? Because, as I said, we were on the pace, and I pushed every lap to be as consistent as possible, but also to be as quick as I could, and it worked. And we were able to get past DC in the pit stop. So, you know, for me, this has been a fantastic race to push, to be so quick on a circuit like this, where the last 2 years for me have been a disaster, really.
How come you've improved so much this year? Because you have found this place a little bit hard to fathom in the past, haven't you?
Yeah, it's the curbs. I mean, I tried to tried to drive as smooth as I can, and you know, around this place it's quite difficult because of the curbs. You got to throw the car over them, but you know, I've got to grips with it a bit more now. Just got a bit of a headache.
How much does it mean to you to be Britain's top driver this year?
It's great, but you know, the main thing for me is to be the top driver in the world. But you know, it's nice to be the top Brit, and hopefully it'll stay that way.
A couple of fourths and a fifth, got to be a podium soon, isn't it?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that one.
A couple of fourths and a fifth place. There's got to be a podium soon for you, hasn't there?
Oh yeah, I'd hope so. Hopefully the next race, Barcelona. But it's going to be difficult because you know the teams are so reliable now at the front, and I think we're going to have to wait a bit longer than we thought, and maybe at the end of the season when we're a bit closer to the two top teams.
Great start for you, Jensen. It's great to see the laughter back in your eyes as well. Terrific. Well done from all of us. Okay, Jensen Button there. When we return, we'll be answering a couple of your questions and the final words from Mark and from Tony. See you shortly. Juan Pablo Montoya, fourth in the San Marino Grand Prix. Here he is chatting to Louise Goodman.
Juan Pablo, not one of your favourite races, I take it?
No, last year wasn't good. This year it wasn't good either. I think this year we had a better chance, but we put the wrong setup in the car, and I don't know if you could see, but I had a lot of understeer, and we were done.
I know you were having a lot of conversations with your engineers during the race. Is there anything you can do to make the car better in that situation?
Yeah, you do a couple of changes, but you know, if you try to solve mid-corner, then you start having problems with the entry as well. So it's very complicated to fix it just like that. I think the car was really good this morning, and we decided to change it on base of what we knew from Michelin, that it was the tire was going to go off. I think, surprisingly, maybe because of the conditions, the tire didn't went off. And I had understeer all the way through the race, and you know, there's nothing we could do.
The views of Juan Pablo. Now we want to hear from you. Emails, and here's the first question. Comes from Nick Cooper in Bristol. What exactly can a driver see in his wing mirrors? Can they see clearly back past a large rear wing of the car, and are there any blind spots? Mark Bundell has all the answers.
The answer to your question is not a great deal. What can I see from the driver's view? I can see the side of the monocoque, the rear tyre, and a very small area where the rear wing's taken up. So not a great deal. When do you use these? Sixth sense tells you that you'll use them when there's a car behind you. Remember one thing, these are actually 20% bigger than what they were last year. So imagine that. The other big issue, vibration. There's a great deal of vibration what runs through the car, goes up the wing mirror stem and shakes these things really badly. In my view, they're not really worth a great deal.
Cheers, Mark. Thanks very much. Next question. Dalby Burham from Derby. Can the cars be controlled from the pits? And if so, what aspects can be changed? On you go, Tony.
Well, they can now because they've got the bi-directional signals which can come from the pits. Telemetry can go both ways. But what they tend to be able to change is not things like the steerings or the wings or the tyres, but they can change fuel settings, engine settings, transmission settings, and that actually makes it safer, because what it means in the past, drivers like Mark would be fiddling around on the steering wheel or down by the dashboard, changing buttons and looking down. Next minute, they tend to run wide or something, so it makes it much safer.
Thanks very much indeed to Tony. Of course, all those questions delivered via the ITV F1 website, and Paul Stoddart, the Minardi boss, will be there. A live web chat with him 1 o'clock this Wednesday. Let's have a word with David Coulthard, shall we? McLaren have been really struggling this weekend. Here's David with Ted.
Disappointing race, David. What were your problems?
Well, just a general lack of grip. Basically, I drove the car hard as was possible, very comfortable with that. Only one small mistake, which was trying to get out of the way of Michael. I ran over the curb at the last chicane, but otherwise just felt like a total lack of grip, because the basic balance was understeer in, oversteer out, all speeds.
And you didn't change your tyres on the second stop. What was the thinking there?
Well, purely because when I put the quality set of tyres that were in a couple of laps on at the second stop, then I struggled a lot bringing them through the sort of graining phase. So I didn't want to go through that phase again, but ultimately I still dropped away the amount of the fuel that was put back in the car. So clearly we're just a mile off the pace today.
They are struggling. Final verdict, Mark.
Total dominance by Ferrari, outstanding by Michael Schumacher. Jenson Button very happy for, showing a lot of maturity. And when was the last time we saw a McLaren get lapped?
Only?
That's very true. Just going into Barcelona, that's very much a Ferrari circuit. long, fast corners, superb aerodynamics of the Ferrari, great balance. It means that all the other teams chasing, particularly Williams, BMW and Michelin, are going to have to work very, very hard to get on the pace of the Ferraris.
Thanks both.
Takuma Sato, very short race. What was the problem?
The problem was selecting gears. I couldn't select the gear at all, apart from first gear. So something mechanically got a failure, and that's why I'm a bit ashamed.
Very disappointing. Thanks a lot.
Gary Anderson, first Takuma and then Giancarlo pulled off. We know about Sato's problem. What was Giancarlo's problem?
It was a hydraulic systems problem. Basically, the hydraulic controls the throttle, gear change, the clutch, and everything. And it seems as though we've lost the hydraulic fluid. So the system basically went down.
Gary, thank you.
Over Anderson, 4 races in, and the first real disappointment for Toyota. What's taken out both your cars?
I think we have a gearbox failure.
On both?
We have to investigate. I don't know, but we lost the drive on both cars.
Thank you very much.
Pedro de la Rosa, a very disappointing weekend for you. We saw you pull over. What was the problem?
Came for my first pit stop, and I was pulling out. We think it's a drive shaft broke. So that was the end of my race, but nevertheless, I think it's always better to retire when you are out of the points and with no chance than when you are. So 3 finishes, this was about to happen.
Pedro, thank you. Eddie Irvine, we just saw you walking back in through pit exit. Where's your car? What happened?
Drive shaft, I think, broke at the pit stop.
Same problem as Pedro?
Seems like.
So you've got a lot of work to do at Silverstone. You've got a lot of work to do at Silverstone.
The drive shaft's the least of our worries.
Thank you.
Enrique Bernaldi went off in a very strange way at the end, straight on. What happened?
I didn't went off, the car just switched off, and I came down to the corner, and when I shift down my gears, the car just switched off, and then I went off by myself not to be in the middle of the track.
How much were conditions changing out there? We see most people do long first runs. Was it getting a lot more grippy as time went on?
Yeah, the track was getting better towards the end, and with more grip. Also, my car was running better at the end.
Hard luck, thanks.
Yeah, no, definitely very disappointed. I didn't really feel the grip from the car, so I was sliding around a lot in the race and wasn't able to exploit any more from it.
What are the special difficulties for you with the McLaren this year?
I think that there's a number of issues that we need to work on, but in this race here, we definitely weren't able to find the balance on the tyre.
In the beginning of the season, you wanted to become world champion this year. What are your targets, your goals now?
I don't think you should ever lower your sights. You should always aim for the top. But what's realistic, obviously, is considerably different now. And I just give 100%, and see what comes. I can't imagine where we're going to be. You want to be the quickest, so that's what we aim for.
What do you think, or what do you hope for Barcelona?
Hopefully we have a good test in Mugello and we find something that will improve our performance there. But Ferrari are looking pretty awesome at the moment, and yeah, it's going to be difficult.
Thanks very much.
Wait. Let him.
Right, 2 questions I need to go.
Fourth place here in Imola, in front of the Ferraristi. So, is it what you expected?
No, we were expecting more. The car was really good in the warm-up, and we went a bit too cautious. We thought the tires were going to go off quite a lot more, and we changed the balance, and suddenly we had a lot of understeer, and the tires never went off. And we had that balance for all the race, and that was it. Couldn't do anything about it.
Seems like you had problems all over the weekend, or did you feel fine?
No, I think yesterday we managed to get a decent balance in the qualifying, but today we didn't. It's all we could do.
So Ferrari is winning now also on tracks where BMW is the favorites. Do you think the gap between BMW and Ferrari is getting more?
I don't think so. I think this track last year was good for us because we had a new tire and we had a lot of new parts here, and that helped us. But I think, from last year to this race, we didn't change anything. So I think we need to do some steps forward. I don't think they increased the advantage or anything. It's just that the track was more suitable for this year's car, for them this year.
Do you feel a little bit disappointed because there was no fight between Michael and you?
No, I wasn't. I was doing my race, and I knew it was going to be no chance to fight against Michael, especially after the first lap when I saw the balance of my car. All right?
After your safety.
I was doing, unfortunately I lost some position in the start because Franzen closed the door to me and I went on the gravel. And then I was on one-stop strategy, it wasn't too bad, so we stopped the race and next time.
Kesäloop. I lost the traction control after 3 laps, first of all, and because you get wheel spin and shifting up, so I think that broke the gearbox as well on the end, so I had a gearbox problem, we had to stop.
Very disappointing weekend for the team.
It's been, I think on the end of the day it was good wake-up calls that things are not so well, but they seem to be after the first 3 races, so I hope everybody realizes now that we have to work a lot harder to keep up with the other guys.
I had so much understood today that I could, it was amazing. It was, our car was good this morning. We decided to change it because from our knowledge on the tire, they were going to go off massively. And they didn't.
Can you change these things during the race?
No, you can't. It's very difficult. You can compromise a little bit on tire pressure and stuff, but no, you can't. A problem like that I had, at the end of the scene when the tire were getting more front grip a little bit, you saw the time came down, but I was 15 seconds too late.
It must feel like a victory.
Oh, it's actually a relief to be finishing at the podium again, because it's been 3 races where I've been there or thereabouts and I couldn't finish, so it's a good race.
It looked like a straightforward win, this one.
Yes, indeed it was. We had a good start, we had a good strategy, we had a perfect car, reliable, fast, with fantastic tires. So all in all, combination was just right to win. What can you have more? 1-2 qualifying, 1-2 race, that's fantastic.
At what point were you confident that or at any point were you confident that you had it in the bag?
You know my nature, I'm confident when I see the checkered flag.
Ross, well done, but there was a lot of radio traffic between you and Michael in the last few laps. What was the situation there?
Just keeping everything cool, looking after everything. I mean, you get paranoid at that stage of a race when everything's gone so well, so just drop the revs, drop the temperatures, take everything easy. So same with Rubens. So.
It's actually a relief to be finishing at the podium again, because it's been 3 races where I've been there or thereabouts and I couldn't finish, so it's a good race.
I must say the car was really good today, although it seems that we were too slow, but everything has worked, and as well the tyre on my car have performed very good. In general, it seems that we are slightly too slow in compared to the Ferraris, and we have to go back home and think about it.
Juan Pablo, not one of your favourite races, I take it?
No, last year wasn't good. This year it wasn't good either. I think this year we had a better chance, but we put the wrong setup in the car, and I don't know if you could see, but I had a lot of understeer, and we were done.
We had a good start, we had a good strategy, we had a perfect car, reliable, fast, with fantastic tyres. So all in all, combination was just right to win.
And so that's 3 wins out of 4 for Michael Schumacher. A 14-point gap now before Ralf Schumacher and Montoya. Button is 4th, Barrichello leaping up to 5th ahead of Coulthard. It's complete a perfect day for Ferrari. Their 16 points takes them to the top of the Constructors' Championship. McLaren 28 points back. And then Renault, followed by Jaguar and Sauber. Mark, an absolutely awesome display of Ferrari power here.
Total dominance, impressive with Michael Schumacher. I mean, the guy was pulling a second a lap more than anybody else on the racetrack. I thought Rubens would be a little bit stronger, but he was stronger at the end of the race. What more can you say? I mean, the red team is just going from strength to strength.
What do the rest of the pack do to catch them up now?
I really don't know. I mean, Ferrari said when our 2002 car comes out, beware, we know it's fast, but I think it's certainly just trashed everybody down the pit lane. They're all scratching their heads and wonder where they're going to get the next level of speed from. At this point in time, it's difficult to see.
Interested to get a driver's viewpoint on a little cameo in the race. Rubens Barrichello absolutely flying, Eddie Irvine dawdling, and Eddie not letting him go by.
Well, frustration there. Rubens Barrichello really pushing hard to catch Ralf Schumacher. Let Ralf go underneath him, come in here, Eddie did, but to just chop Rubens off at the last moment. Frustrating thing again is like he doesn't recognise that he's actually there and holds him up for a number of seconds. Little hand gesture there from Rubens, as you'd expect.
Yes, Michael Schumacher, though, reasserting, hey, I am number 1, by taking Rubens' car today.
Psychological warfare, I think you could call that. That's a situation where Rubens, you're a little bit too quick in your qualifying. You've got a great package there. Why don't I take that for the race? And it paid off. I mean, Rubens is obviously a little bit frustrated with that, but you know, Michael Schumacher is king of the castle.
One of the big surprises of the season is McLaren so far back, so far adrift of Ferrari and Williams, and David Coulthard, a pit stop very, very unusual. This to keep ahead of Jenson Button.
They're trying to make up a situation of movement on the racetrack. They left their tyres on. You can see that the Michelins are still in good shape, very durable, but it never paid off. Jenson Button still made the move on the road. That is desperation by McLaren. There's nothing there left for them to do.
What are the reasons for a McLaren being so disappointing from your point of view?
I can't put my finger on it. I really am scratching my head at this point. You seem to have a lot of points going towards the engine. Everybody seems to think that they're down on power. I just can't imagine that Mercedes-Benz can be that much down on power compared to the BMW or the Ferrari, but that's where all the fingers are pointing.
We're looking for new stars of the future. Montoya is sort of threatening, and a young man, a 20-year-old called Felipe Massa, the Brazilian, he caught your eye here.
He certainly has. Look at this move he does on Trulli there on the first Ravazza. Very difficult manoeuvre to take off. A lot of confidence there. Putting Trulli by your side and just leaving him in the distance is a lot of inspirational stuff. I think he is a star for the future. He's only 4 Grand Prix, he's very young, 20 years old. I'm going to keep my eye on the guy.
Just a word about Williams finally, the most successful manufacturer around this track. Ralph on the podium, but Montoya never really at the sharpest end.
No, Montoya was a little bit disappointing for me today. I really thought he would put in a mega effort. Didn't get the result. Complained at the end of his race that too much understeer in his car. But beware, you know, just wait for Monster. He will come back.
Monster Montoya will return. Mark, thank you very much indeed. Our next port of call, Barcelona, Spanish Grand Prix, qualifying live 11:30 on the Saturday, pre-race show 12:05 on the Sunday, and highlights at 11:45. Ferrari have blown the rest away today. Are they really unbeatable? That's the big question as we head for Barcelona. Good